welcome to the Sac City Unified School District Board of Education meeting on January 21st. And we have item 4.0, call back to order Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by H.W. Harkness Elementary School teacher Sean Peters and Peter advisor Lori Tolgren, along with 6th grade students. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. They have been donating gifts to troops overseas.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's show our Harkness pride tonight. So for the 6th year, students at H.W. Harkness Elementary School led a donation drive for overseas U.S. troops. The effort was supported by 6th grade teacher Sean Peters and parent advisor Lori Tolgren. The class collected an abundance of items like DVDs, playing cards, disposable cameras, and hand sanitizer. The 6th graders also collected Beanie Babies for military personnel who wrote personal letters to those serving in the armed forces. Overall, the students collected 1,748 items for the troops. The ongoing outreach teaches students compassion, community service, and appreciation for our military troops. The Board of Education is proud to recognize the 6th grade class of H.W. Harkness as our stellar students, and Sean Peters and Lori Tolgren as our stellar teachers and community.
Would you like to say something?
We would like to thank Miss Lori for organizing this for the past 6 years. We would also like to thank Mr. P and Miss Govea for everything.
Fantastic.
I would like to thank the board members for giving us this amazing award.
I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I have the best class ever. I've been at Harkness 18 years, and I can't wait to spend another 18 years there. Thank you.
You'll have to excuse me. My voice is a little hoarse, but I just want to share that I'm so proud of my 6th grade class. They are one of the best we've had so far, and this speaks to their efforts in bringing these items to the troops. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, now I'll get to talk. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge Mr. Chapman in the back. He was former principal of Harkness. So everyone say hey. And also that he was the principal there when my children went to Harkness, and Taja and Alana. I don't know, I think you guys know, yeah, you guys know them. And I just want to just kind of strengthen and enforce what we've all been taught at Harkness is that's the way to do it at Harkness, right? That's the Harkness way. And Mr. Peters, you know that I just enjoyed your phone messages so much. I had to go see you in person and see the action and real life, because I couldn't believe that these phone messages were coming through to parents about talking points and what to talk to your kids over dinner that night. So I want to thank you for your continuous efforts and great work with our students and our families and our community, and just setting a great example for everyone. So, and Ms. Govea, thank you for just taking over the school, taking the helm, and continuing the Harkness way. And this is an illustration of how well you've done. So thank you very much. And thank you, sixth grade students. And you send my love and Taja and Alana's love back to everyone. All right, thank you.
Okay. Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
None, Madam President.
Thank you. Item 6.0. Oh, actually, item 6.0, agenda adoption. Can I get a motion? Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Member Barry, you have a speech spell for us?
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption, with exception of technical problems, on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, January 24th at 9 a.m., Monday, January 25th at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the community room and give to the Chief Communications Officer, Mr. Ross, prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is listed on the agenda, you will be asked to defer until your item comes up on the agenda. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you so much. Item 7.0, public comment. Mr. Ross?
We have 3 comments on 7.0 from Nikki Malevsky, Cheshua Beckett, and Angie Sutherland.
Good evening, President Pritchett and other members of the board. I'm Nikki Malevsky, President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. I wanted to take a few minutes to share our perspective on bargaining regarding our wage reopener. Is this on? Where is it projecting? Is the board seeing it? Okay, thank you. Here we go. Now, on January 11th, we met at the district's request to try to resolve this reopener. As you know, we were at impasse. There's a tremendous teacher shortage in our district. As we sit here today, there are at least 45 job openings. By September, with class size reduction, retirement, and attrition, this district will need to hire an additional 200 educators. We fear that this number will rise even higher this spring as experienced teachers who've had enough with how this district treats its educators leave for higher wages and better treatment in neighboring districts. We recently concluded our membership survey with 1,000 teachers responding. More than half, 53%, said they were considering leaving the district because of wages. More than 75% said that they knew teachers who left or are leaving because wages are not competitive. As you know, we reached a conceptual understanding with the superintendent that would have allowed us to have much more competitive salary schedule this spring, a positive reputation, and a path to start negotiations for a new contract immediately. For unclear reasons, the district was unwilling to finalize that conceptual understanding. That is bad enough. But the district chose to make the problem worse by once again making an unlawful attempt to cut teacher benefits. Benefits are not on the table. Benefits are not subject to this reopener, and here are the documents to make that clear. This is the tentative agreement. Our reopener, as you can see here under Article 12 on compensation, was created under new section, salary 2014-15 and 15-16. The language is clear. If the district receives additional funding or savings over the district's general fund unrestricted projected budget for the 15-16 school year, the parties agree to immediately reopen negotiations to bargain over possible enhancements to SETA bargaining unit members' compensation. The district understood that going in, and for 5 bargaining sessions prior to winter break, we discussed wage enhancements. In our last meeting, the district unlawfully backtracked. The agreement does not say the parties will trade off savings from benefits in exchange for wage increases. In fact, it only allows for the discussion to occur over possible enhancements to compensation. Moreover, as much as some want to argue that benefits are part of compensation, contractually and legally by our collective bargaining agreement, they are not. To link them in this reopener is unlawful. As you can see here in Article 12 of the contract, Article 12 is compensation, and that is what the reopener was in the TA. Article 13, as you can see, is a separate article, and it is about employee benefits. And as hard as you new lawyers try to merge Article 13 into Article 12, they are separate. And if your attorney had your best interests in mind, they would be honest with you about this. The district's 11th hour attempt to link wage increases to benefit concessions is unlawful and is in bad faith. It is also a very poor reflection on the respect this district feels towards its educators. Do you really think that teachers want to work in a district that seems to have problems following the law over and over again? More importantly, it doesn't solve the problem. The teacher shortage in Sac City is a crisis. Asking teachers to pay for their own wage increase out of concessions in healthcare when the district is in the best financial position it has been in a generation is not only not going to solve it, but it's going to make the situation even worse, as educators and teachers see this district as once again resorting to unlawful and underhanded measures rather than doing what's right for the students. Every Sac City student deserves to be taught by a fully credentialed, fully qualified, certificated educator. A simple first step is to make our salary a little more competitive with the other districts in this area. Thank you for your time tonight.
Ms. Milewski. Ms. Beckett?
Thank you, Superintendent Banda and board members. My name is Cheshua Beckett, and my husband and I are both teachers at Rosemont High School and parents of children in this district. I want you to know that I love my job, and I feel very fortunate that I get to be a teacher. Superintendent Banda, on Tuesday, I did read the January Equity Newsletter and asked myself the question that was posed. How do we begin? For me, it brought me here tonight. My heart and soul is with this district, and I am very concerned for the children of this district and making sure they all have highly qualified teachers in front of their classes. I'm concerned with the district's ability to recruit and retain teachers. First, with recruiting, we have approximately 45 open positions in our district that we have been unable to fill. We just this week were finally able to hire a Spanish teacher at our school, and he will be starting when the second semester begins. That means those students went a whole semester with revolving subs that usually didn't speak Spanish. And this is happening in classes across our district. I am also incredibly concerned with our ability to retain teachers. Many of my colleagues that I have talked to throughout the district are looking to leave and work for other districts around us. Our district has not really had to worry about retention because during the years of constant pink slipping, nobody felt safe leaving because of the last hired, first fired reality. We are in a different position now. Teachers within our district are going to be able to go to other districts and be paid more. For example, if my husband and I both went to San Juan, our combined salary would go up just under $32,000, and our benefits do not cost anywhere close to that. We still have a lot of teaching years left, and that gap is going to continue to grow. So to the topic of equity. The reality of this teacher shortage is going to be how inequitable it is. It is going to be in the lower socioeconomic schools where we will have a hard time getting qualified teachers in classrooms. It is going to be at schools where the parents are having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to help their families survive. and their kids are going to be out of luck because we won't be able to compete with other districts around to get a qualified teacher in their classrooms. It's not going to be at my children's neighborhood school in East Sacramento where we're unable to hire teachers. Now you tell me, how is that fair? That is not right. We need to take care of all of the children of this district. How are you all making sure that equitable educational opportunities are available to all of the children of this district? So back to how do we begin? We need to start with having competitive wages to recruit and retain our teachers so that come September, we are ready to take care of all of the children of this district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Beckett. Ms. Sutherland.
Good evening, Superintendent Bonda and board members. I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm a parent in our school district, and I'm going to share, you should have copies, a recent letter with you addressed to the California Department of Education. It's submitted on behalf of 3 civil rights organizations, Disability Rights California, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, and the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. So you've likely seen in the news a lot of stories about incidents of students who were abused in their classrooms or given harsh disciplinary practices. In our state, also in other states, some recent ones were Rockland Unified School District. Several students were abused in the classrooms, and Antioch was another recent one at a non-public school. So the letter is asking CDE to take immediate action to protect students with disabilities from emotional and physical abuse, such as restraint and seclusion, and mostly happening in segregated classrooms. And I've given you a copy of the letter. What I'm asking is for our district to take on a leadership role and look at our internal practices. We could be a leader among the districts. We don't have to wait until litigation happens or an incident happens. A lot of times we don't even know the incidents are happening because they're in closed classroom doors, and a lot of students are nonverbal and can't explain what happened to them. So I'm asking for us to put the efforts to provide the right training and so that our students can learn in positive environments. I'm asking us to look internally and be a leader in California. And I know as a parent firsthand how harmful it can be when a child experiences major ongoing trauma as a result of disciplinary practices. This happened to my child in a general education class. And I see the differences when children are in positive environments and the success that they can get from that. And for instance, my daughter is, she's in Hollywood Park Elementary, and they have such positive school climate. Everyone who interacts with her, her special ed teacher, her general ed teacher, because she's mainstreaming for part of the day, her PE teacher, the parent liaison at the school, the principal, the office staff, it's all positive. She's even received multiple awards this year and participated in extracurricular activities where before she wasn't invited to those or allowed to attend those. So again, I'm asking for our school district to be a leader in positive approaches. We have to devote the resources to the early intervention. A lot of times students may not need to be in those segregated settings or sent off to non-public schools because of behavior, if they're approached in the right manner. So I've given you a picture of her getting her awards, as well as her drawings of what she went through when she was restrained, removed excessively from the classroom. And those, unfortunately, those are lasting memories that stay with her. And she recounts those frequently. But the good news is she's super happy where she is now. And she really appreciates her teachers. And I think they appreciate her too, because we get compliments all the time from them. So Again, please, everyone, if we could take a look internally, do some of these things that these civil rights organizations are asking the CDE to do. We could do those internally and not have to wait until we have problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Do we have any other public? Okay. Item 8.0, consent agenda. Thank you. I got a motion and a second. All approve? Yes. All right. Opposed? Abstentions? No. Okay. Consent agenda is passed. All right. Item 9.0, board workshop, strategic plan, and other initiatives. 9.1, approve resolution number 2866, designated Floyd Farms manager. Ms. Allen? This is a conference action. Thank you.
So good evening, President Pritchett, members of the board, Superintendent Bonda. I'm very pleased to bring before you tonight a resolution appointing the Food Literacy Center as the manager of the Floyd Farms project. And I'm going to turn it over to Member Hanson, who's done the yeoman's work on this. I know you want to bring up some folks to kind of share and celebrate. So I'll step aside if that's okay.
Sure. Okay, are we going to go right to public comment?
Sure.
So I'd be happy to take over a little bit of the presentation. I'll just say we've had an opportunity to hear about Floyd Farms several times over the last year plus. There has been a lot of work. I'd like to recognize a few folks that are here in the audience. First, I tasked my good friend Michael Mendez to, now Dr. Mendez, to help me early on because we had it's a real challenge to be a super effective board member, and you really do have to. It takes a village to get stuff done, and he was generous enough to offer his time to do that. So special thank you to you. And we had a lot of people who joined a team and a task force to work on this during the last couple of years. We had Pastor Mark Meeks, who's here. Thank you, Pastor Meeks. Kevin Smith from the development company, the principals at Leotada and at Health Professions High School, now Eric Chapman at Leotada and Marlon Johnson at the Health Professions. And we've had folks come in and out, obviously, including our staff. Kathy Allen and her staff has been great supporters. Steve Hansen, our local council member, has been a great supporter and has been part of it every step of the way, and his able deputy, Jameson, who's here. Phil Cerna, our county supervisor, has been helpful every step of the way as well. And I hope I didn't forget anybody who's in the audience, but we've been adding people to that as we go. We've never done anything like a Floyd Farms project in the district, so that makes it doubly complicated because when you're breaking new ground, it's, you have no roadmap. So the district was very, I think, smart several years ago, along with the developer and the city, assigning an MOU to dedicate the funds that were going to be generated from the development around Leotada and Health Professions High School, the development that's happening there, have those funds dedicated to a farm, have them dedicated to that community. And the three entities signed that agreement some number of years ago. The development is off the ground and running. I drive by quite often to see the houses are springing up quickly. And it's starting to generate those school fees to the city and to the school district. So trying to put together exactly what we were going to do with a 2.5 acre space of property next to Leotada Floyd Elementary School was a big challenge. And I think our biggest challenge was finding an operator that would be able to take on this task and this project, and someone that we could have full confidence in. And I think we found a great person and a great organization to do that, that's got deep support in the community. And that's going to be really important for us moving forward, because it's a big investment on the part of all the parties that are involved. So this resolution that's in front of us today would authorize the district to designate the Floyd Farm manager as the Food Literacy Center. I know there are several people here to speak on that resolution, and I think it would be appropriate to ask them to come on up and let's do the public comment and turn it over to Gabe.
Thank you,
to
Member
call
Hanson.
folks.
And don't forget the work from your facilities committee. You didn't mention us.
Absolutely. I could never do it without my able board members and the parts of my facilities committee, Gustavo Arroyo, and my able president, Christina Pritchett.
Thank you. Mr. Ross, public comment.
We have 9 comments on 9.1. I'll read the names in the order they're called, 4 at a time. If folks can please line up behind the microphone in the order you're called. Michael Mendez, Jameson Parker, Randall Selland, and Amber Stott.
Good evening. Again, my name is Michael Mendez. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the school board members for hearing this item today. Again, my name is Michael Mendez. I'm currently a professor of environmental studies and science at the University of San Francisco. I focus on issues of urban sustainability and environmental justice, and I have been a resident of Sacramento for the last 13 years. Here in Sacramento, I've worked on a lot of community and urban development projects, particularly working as an appointee to the Sacramento Planning Commission. So I worked on a lot of interesting and exciting and controversial projects, oftentimes with school board member Darrell Wool. But I can honestly say that the Floyd Farms is one of the most important projects that I've worked on in my career, both academically and professionally. I think this is a great opportunity for Sacramento to really think big and to really innovate and lead in terms of what we can do in providing quality education mixed in with providing good access to healthy foods. Here in Sacramento, we have the opportunity to provide community benefits and environmental benefits to a very underserved community, and particularly a community of color. And so when the school board member Hanson asked me to volunteer my time almost 2 years ago, I really jumped at this opportunity because, again, this is a project like no other. This project, Floyd Farms, will serve as a model not just for California or the Sacramento region, but for the nation. The Floyd Farms is really modeled after initially the Alice Waters Edible School Garden in Berkeley, California, who Alice Waters, many of you know, is a very famous chef who runs Chez Panisse. And that's only a 1-acre farm. Here we have a 2.5-acre farm. I had a PowerPoint, if you may, and I could give you an idea of how Sacramento should be thinking big and how the Edible School Farm in Berkeley really served as an opportunity for here in Sacramento. So school board member Hanson and I went to the Edible School Farm, and these are just some field sites. So again, this is only a 1-acre farm where they have instructional gardens, they have amphitheater spaces, a greenhouse where they sell, where the students are cultivating various type of plants and selling it to the local community. They have a chicken farm there as well. Here's school board member Hanson working on one of the instructional devices about how do you make flour. I believe it was flour there, or grain. So it's a very sustainable project. What was most impressive is what Alice Waters and the school district in Berkeley had done in terms of this instructional kitchen. When our new operator introduced us to this concept of this instructional kitchen, I had no idea what it was or the importance of it. And these are just some glimpses of all the curriculum and training that they do in this school site. And that's basically it. And again, I'd just like to say here in strong support of this project, and I'd like to thank, again, school board member Hanson for putting this forward and really being a leader for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez.
Hi there. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jameson Parker. I work in Councilmember Steve Hanson's office. I'll just take a minute. There's a lot of support out there. So in 2011, when the city and the school district and the developer at the mill at the Broadway came together and developed this tri-party agreement, a lot of progress was made then, and a lot of progress is being made tonight with this agreement with Amber to operate this working farm at Floyd Farms. It's a major milestone, and we're getting closer, another step closer to our journey here and making this successful. Floyd Farms represents a great opportunity, not only for the students in the school district, but also the surrounding community, Marina Vista on Alder Grove and Upper Land Park, where you combine a working farm with a community garden and a learning center. You have a lot of opportunity for education and access to healthy local produce. And that's really, really important for the community and really improves the quality of life. And you combine that with the knowledge and expertise that Amber and the Food Literacy Center brings to the table, that's just going to multiply the benefits. So with that, thank you for your time, and I urge you to support this item.
Thank you, board members. My name is Randall Selland, and I'm the executive chef owner with my family of Selland Family Restaurants. I'm here to ask for your vote for this project to show my support for food literacy. We've actually been working with them since the day they started here in Sacramento, and talk about the most dedicated people out there. Amber Stott, who started this project or started food literacy, works tirelessly to make sure that the children that she's teaching and her staff is now teaching, because she started off as a one-person show, really gets down to the root of what we're talking about with healthy eating and getting our kids to understand what food is really all about. And really, you know, we've worked with Amber over the last 4 years and know that she's really the perfect fit for this project. Having food literacy and the farm on site at Leotata, Florida will be a huge asset for the whole community as a whole. And, you know, we've watched food literacy work tirelessly, educating the children, as I said before, that serve, that they serve. And for this reason, I know they'll work tirelessly on this project alone. And just really quick, my family is 100% behind this project. It's not only great, it's not only the best benefit for the school, the community, the school district, but as Sacramento is the true farm-to-fork capital of America, it's the perfect project for this area, and we really want you to vote for it, and Amber is, and food literacy is the best one to run it. So thank you so much, and hopefully if they sell their stuff, we'll buy it, because we're opening up a new restaurant on Broadway, so if you live in the area, come see us. Anyway, thank you very much.
That, but I pass it out. I'm Amber Stott, and I'm the founding executive director of Food Literacy Center, and I'm super celery excited to be here, so thank you for having me. And if you're with Food Literacy Center, just stand up. I just want people to see how much support we have from the community. If you guys vote for Food Literacy Center for the farm manager for Leotata Floyd, you're making a very low risk and high impact investment in our kids. If you know the statistics about childhood obesity in this country, they're very high, and Sacramento is actually higher than across the state. The state average is about 38%. In Sacramento, we have a 40% childhood obesity rate. Only 4% of our kids are eating their veggies. They're supposed to eat about 2 to 3 cups, and they're not even getting that. If you can imagine, kids who aren't eating well aren't also learning well because their bellies are empty and they're having low energy. So it's really important that we get these kids this education very early on. Food Literacy Center has been able to scale very quickly and very smartly. We have started with 1 school in 2012. We're already in 8 schools. We already have a farm to school grant from the federal government working in partnership with the school district and with Soil-Borne Farms. And we will believe that we can double the number of schools that we are in when we have the facility at Leotata Floyd Farms. It's also very low cost investment. It's only gonna cost us about $450 per student per year to provide the level of education that we offer with food literacy curriculum that's academically based and very STEM focused. And I just want to also say that you guys all have an amazing passion and dedication for our kids. And I hope that you can imagine your level of passion in the food geniuses that we train from the community. They obviously are here in great numbers. They're our army, and they're the folks that we have trained through professors and through community experts, and they're the folks who will be teaching our kids. So thank you for your time, and I hope you vote yes.
Thank you.
Our next 5 comments are from Mark Meeks, Elaine Lander, Yvonne Fisher, Perrin Simpson, and Nicole Rogers.
Good evening. Thank you, members. My name is Mark Meeks. I'm a semi-retired civil engineer, 30 plus years, and now nascent pastor of City Church of Sacramento. We have the privilege of being a part of the community and worshiping out of the Health Professions High School and Leotata Floyd. Thank you, Jay, so much for your work to bring it here. For the 4 years we've been there, seems like half as much of the time we've been there, it's been discussing this project. I'll come at it from a different perspective, not the healthy food, but for the opportunity that this project has to knit community together. It's one of those things, don't need to tell you about the demographic. It's almost like a tale of two cities. Best of times, it's the worst of times. A lot of transformation that's going on in the community, a lot of it missing community. This project has a unique opportunity to really galvanize community in a way that a lot of other activity there doesn't. I'm anxious, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic about all the opportunity that's before us. And I want to be there and work shoulder to shoulder with not only the developer, Kevin Smith, Marla, Eric, and with Amber, with the project, but to really bring the community and engage them in a way that they haven't been engaged. So I am standing here in strong support of the project and looking for the potential of what this project will really bring. So thank you all very much, and I endorse the project.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Elaine Lander, and I am Program Officer at Food Literacy Center. I started out as a volunteer, and so with that in mind, I just want to say thank you to our volunteers, our food geniuses, our interns, our community partners that are here in support tonight. So thank you. As Food Literacy Center's program officer, I have an opportunity to develop and write and deliver the curriculum at Leotata Floyd and facilitate the delivery of that curriculum throughout the district. It's a lot of fun. Our kids get to learn about fractions, measuring out beans, dried beans, with measuring cups and measuring spoons. They get to learn about chemistry, conducting experiments with emulsions and making a citrus vinaigrette. They get to learn about plant anatomy and identify different parts of the plants that we eat. We collect data about our programs, and we know that we have several years of data that are tracking and assessing how much our kids are learning, how effective our programs are, and we've got the information and the data to show that we're changing their knowledge, we're changing their attitude, and we're changing their behavior about eating nutritious food and making healthy choices in their lives. Over the last year, we've developed a creative assessment modeled very similarly after the Edible Schoolyard creative assessment to think about what our kids are learning. Our signature lesson is a sun butter sandwich, so we bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to the school to talk to the kids about. And we swap out peanut butter for sunflower seed butter, and instead of using jelly, we introduce fruit. And we use something that's seasonal and local so the kids really get an opportunity to learn about what's in their backyard. In our creative assessment, the kids get to make their own sandwich. We get to see what they've learned after 13 weeks of food literacy. And this recently, we did this at Leotata Floyd, and the kids picked all different kinds of things. They put apples, they put sun butter, they put kale, they put carrots and lettuce. They styled their sandwiches and made happy faces on their sandwiches, and then they showed us, and we asked them, are you going to eat that kale and apple sandwich? And they took a big bite and ate it. So it's really a beautiful opportunity to be in the classroom. This evening I was actually at Leotata Floyd for their student showcase. All of the students worked on a project, and these kids were incredible. Just the professionalism with which they delivered their presentations, the things they talked about, and I'm really excited to see the opportunity that they have to bring food literacy into the classroom, into their showcase, to see what kinds of recipes they develop, what kind of demos they decide to share, because I think that the promise of this project is delicious. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Perrin Simpson, and I'm 8 years old. Food literacy has shown me veggies I would have never eaten. The reason why I want to be a chef is because of food literacy. If I have never heard of a vegetable or fruit, food literacy will tell me. Food literacy always teaches kids new healthy recipes, like a fruit and vegetable salad. Food literacy goes to different schools and teaches children about vegetables and fruits, and sometimes they will give them a healthy meal. Food literacy is a good thing, and I believe it will always be a good thing.
My name is Yvonne Fisher, and this is my daughter, Pear. I just want to say a few things as a single mother and a few things as an educator in Oak Park. As a single mother, I used to feed my baby the same vegetables my mother would feed myself and my siblings: string beans, broccoli, corn, the basics. Up until food literacy, even though I'm an adult, I wasn't introduced to different vegetables. Now my daughter and I, we eat all type of things like spinach, beets, what else? All type of things. Artichokes, Brussels sprouts, things that I just never wanted to touch as a child. And the fact that I am an adult and I am a mother, and we've learned these things through food literacy, we're both enjoying them. We both cook them together at home. And she's even knowledgeable when we go to the grocery store. She looks at the back of the packages. She tells me certain things like, is this healthy? Are we supposed to have this? How much are we supposed to have? And it's just made us both more knowledgeable about a healthy eating lifestyle. As an educator working in Oak Park, a lot of our babies come from single homes or just low-income homes. And ironically, although these parents receive food stamps, they go to the grocery stores, they buy whatever the children want. So if they say juices, soda, snacks, whatever it is, the children will get it. So if we have food literacy coming in, teaching these children about vegetables and fruits, when the children go to the grocery store with their parents and they say, I want this fruit or vegetable, of course the parent is going to get it. If our children are more knowledgeable about fruits and vegetables, it can help the parents, as myself, become more knowledgeable as well. I am a huge advocate for food literacy. They have helped my daughter find a new calling in life. We call her Chef Pear. She's been on Good Day Sacramento. She's been at the kitchen, and they were amazing. They taught her a lot, and she continues to grow. She's continuing to ask questions and be more knowledgeable about cooking. So not only have they gave us the education, they've introduced us to new foods, healthy foods, and they've shined a light on something that my daughter had never thought about, is being a cook. And that's something I'm going to support fully, and food literacy is always supporting us. Miss Amber and the whole entire team, they're amazing, and what they're doing is amazing. It's not only helping the children, but it's helping the families. Like she was speaking about earlier, the obesity in these neighborhoods. Our babies are not healthy, and I just couldn't imagine if my 8-year-old was obese. So I'm thankful they came into our lives when she was only 5, because now we're not only just eating corn and broccoli and string beans, we're trying all type of things. So hopefully you guys say yes. Thank you.
Hi again. I'm Nicole Rogers, and as board chair of Food Literacy Center and the director of Farm to Fork, this program underscores the strength of this region's identity as America's Farm to Fork capital. This program, partnering with Food Literacy Center, will set the stage for Sacramento youth to prosper and thrive, but will also show the state and our country the right model to grow and develop healthy children. These children will grow into our new food and ag leaders, and the best absolutely should be coming from here, this region, America's farm to fork capital. So the question is, will you vote yes? We absolutely endorse this, and there's nothing more I could say, especially after that. So please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more card on this topic from Lynn Hanna.
Hello, thank you. And I also am full support of your decision to go with the Food Literacy Center. I want to offer a little bit of perspective of kind of what goes on behind the scenes. While the classroom with the children is obviously the penultimate part of it, I wanted to share with you the fact that the food geniuses, those community volunteers, they are trained, they're vetted, they are receiving peer-reviewed scientific information, evidence-based education about their approaches in the classrooms. And as a professor at Sacramento State, I'm also bringing to that Food Literacy Center internship opportunities where we have college students in those STEM programs and backgrounds actually interacting with those kids, putting in a contribution to the curriculum, assessing curriculum, and coming from the perspective of a student who's also learning about nutrition, food, or studying to be a registered dietitian. So I fully want you to understand that this is a complete picture. We have a lot of different components, including community interaction, students, our big network of volunteers, but this is not a kind of fad type of an approach. We are talking about evidence-based curriculum for those volunteers and development of what's being presented in the classrooms. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So this is is this on? Yeah, okay. This is a conference action, so I'm going to take a motion to move this into action.
I second.
Second. I think I got a couple seconds. I think I'll take one as a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we are now in action. I'll take board comment, and I have Member Wu.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Mr. Chapman for taking me on a tour of the site, and good to see you again, Dr. Mendez. I have never said Dr. Mendez, so congratulations on your doctorate. But I don't do this very often because I don't know how to use it, but I got this note on my Facebook today that said, it's Amber Stott's birthday today.
Oh.
So wish her the best. So happy birthday, and when my colleagues are completed with their comments, I'll move the staff's recommendation.
Member Cochran.
I have to tell you before I even make these comments that I 100% support, and you will have my vote. I know in 5 years what I will see out there won't be what I see today, which is just hard, kind of scrabbly ground with weeds. I'm going to see rows of green, large sunflowers rotating in the sun, crops, grapes. But I want to point out that we do have many facilities that have the power to have gardens and the infrastructure. And I want to make sure that while we celebrate food literacy and Leotada, that we don't forget that we need to support these other sites that have these facilities. In particular, I'm thinking of Luther Burbank, because I don't know if you know here that this is one of the last, I'm talking to you, preaching to the choir, I think, but Luther Burbank is the last existing urban Future Farmers of America site here in this district. And it has the infrastructure and the facilities to have a Leotada type farm in place. And so when you have the success, food literacy people, and you can grow, look to these other sites, Theodore Judah Garden, David Lubin. Rosemont High School has the Culinary Academy, and I believe they're now getting fruits, maybe not fruits, but vegetables and herbs from their garden. So I think you're going to have a sweep here, but don't forget and take what you're going to do to Leotada and spread it across the district, because we have the infrastructure. We're just ready to go. Thank you, Amber.
Second Vice President Ryan.
Thank you. So I just want to begin, Amber, I want to wish you a happy birthday, but I also want to say that I cannot think of a better entity to choose to operate this project. I've seen firsthand in Oak Park on a regular basis your commitment, your energy, your vision, your endless enthusiasm for creating a culture that embraces healthy food. And that enthusiasm is contagious, as evident by all of your volunteers, your food geniuses, I think your choir that follows you around, because you are the Pied Piper of food. I also just want to say, I have too had the privilege of visiting Leotada and having Mr. Chapman walk me around the future site of Floyd Farms. And I know it's not in my area, but part of being a school board member is caring about all areas. And I cannot think of a more worthy school site or area to have a groundbreaking project exist upon. Frankly, the idea that we can tell students living across the street in abject poverty with very few opportunities in life that they will not just have access to an incredible piece of innovation, but we believe that they are going to have a path to a meaningful career. That's incredible. And I'm thrilled that we have board member Hanson's support and leadership around this, but I really recognize the ground troops that have been fighting this fight for the last 4 years. And I know that your commitment will extend beyond this site. I already know you're talking about the vision for growing this work across the district. And I am so proud of each and everything you do. I strongly support this project.
Member Rodriguez.
President. So I have a few notes here. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I have a few notes here that I'm going to go down. Where do I begin? I'm going to begin with Amber, the executive director. So I kind of was taken back a little bit when you said STEM, because I think that it's STEAM, because cooking is an art. We wouldn't see Master Chef children and the amazing work they do, by the way, or we wouldn't see these television competitions. And I've been watching Alton Brown since I think he started. So I love the whole technology of food and how things mix and stuff like that. So I really think that there needs to be a mind shift there to include that A in this. Thank you for listening to my appeal on that. I also want to thank Executive Chef Selland for being here. I know that you're very busy. I don't even know where you are anymore. Oh, you're back there. I don't have my glasses on. I just visited one of your establishments, and I rant and rave all over Sacramento about that's probably one of the very few handful of places that I actually enjoy going to. And I refer people there all the time. And as many times as I can meet there, I go there. So thank you for your support in this, and I look forward to your new adventure. I want to thank Chef Brenda for always being there, no matter where I'm at. Whatever food literacy project I go to, even if it's in Area 5, I always see Chef Brenda around, and she's so actively engaged in the community. I always thank you from the bottom of the heart, because that's just what you do, and that's how you show you care, by always being there. So thank you. And also big shout out to Dr. Michael Mendez. I'm going to put a little bit of a spin on this. There are so few ethnic minorities that have their doctorate degree. And I think that today is a day of celebration. We should celebrate that we have an ethnic minority like Dr. Mendez, who now has striven to the top levels from one of the top universities to get their doctorate. And what a great example you're showing to all the children that look like you, that they can do it too. So thank you very much for your perseverance to get there. As far as the obesity rates, I also want to make a mention that I have a few schools that have obesity, but also diabetes in the south end of Sacramento. One school in particular, I know we had a health event so that we could educate the parents of the community about what is diabetes and what is healthy eating and how do you manage through that. So that's important that we keep that on the radar. So whoever brought those statistics up, thank you very much for always bringing that forward. And my favorite person who came to speak, little Chef Pear. Where are you, my dear? Hi, Chef Pear. I just want to tell you about, I just took a class over at University of Southern California, and we had the top executives come in and talk to us about the importance of having a worldly palate. And by you starting at the age of 8 to experiment with food and to taste and go outside beyond the things that you know and to taste these different foods, you will enter into places that you could have never entered in before. So it's important for you to keep that up, the curiosity level, but to also encourage your friends to have that worldly palate, because doors and opportunities will open up to them as well. Food brings people together. And when we talk about breaking bread, we talk about being together, and we talk about having conversations, and we talk about making things happen. So always have that curiosity, little Chef Pear, and pursue your dreams. I want to see you being a chef because I love food. So I have a little something to tell you. As a Central Coast girl, I feel that we are the original farm to fork capital of the United States. I come from the salad bowl. Okay, so Salinas Valley, Santa Cruz, Watsonville. I mean, we grow all the strawberries and lettuce and artichokes and stuff like that. So I think you're in for a little competition because I think we're considered to be the original. I was living farm to fork way long ago. So I just want to make a little competition out of that. And thank you to my member, Cochran, for the shout out to Luther Burbank High School. Luther Burbank, that school is named after a botanist, after a creator. And, it is a shame that we had let that program fall, but I'm so glad that we have people there today like Mr. McClatchy and his crew that are building that up. And I see somebody else here in the audience that have been building it up to the level of where we're going and the momentum that we're going forward with that. So thank you very much for that. But we also have areas in the south side that have space to actually put gardens that we haven't even touched. And I could just name 2 areas right now, Susan B. Anthony School area and Woodbine School. And then I think there's a great opportunity over at the Rosa Parks and Mark Hopkins area to put a huge community garden out there too. So keep that on your radar, guys. My last comment, and I say this all the time, so it shouldn't be strange to anyone, but the reason why we're doing this is for people. The reason why we are serving that community is because they have always been looked at from a disadvantaged lens. And I would hate to see all of this work being done and for only that community to be torn out of there and moved somewhere else. I've said it to the developers, I've said it to the community of the soil-borne farms and everybody else that was involved as we were moving this project along. It's important to me, and I think it's important to Sacramento, that we do not transplant anyone that's there in that whole area at CV Circle and replace them with a different community. Keep them whole. And if somebody moves out, you move somebody of equal level into that community. And always keep it a community where you serve the least and you do your best. Thank you.
Vice President Hansen.
Thank you very much. Now I can move from being methodical in my presentation to being enthusiastic, eggplant enthusiastic in my support. Very much looking forward to the work that I think we're going to be able to do here. It's super exciting to me. We will make Leotato Floyd a destination school in this district, and partnering with Health Professions High School, a destination high school, and really furthering our status, I think, as a district as a whole with a project like this as a destination district. I think it's a great opportunity for us. We are the farm to fork capital. Sorry, or Salinas or wherever that was. But that's something I think we're super proud of as well. You don't have to look very hard, but I'm a big food lover. I love to eat myself, and I think it's super. It'll be really exciting for the students to be able to learn about where food really comes from, to learn about nutrition, to learn about food preparation. I was a very late bloomer myself in food and learning, how to eat. And I had a very young mom, who's just 20 years old when she had me, and my thrill, and I think I was raised on fried bologna sandwiches with ketchup on Wonder Bread, so that's still a little bit in me still, but I work hard to move it out. And with the great chefs that we have in the city and so many great chefs that are part of this program, that is just really exciting as well. I think that we've got something very positive here. The fun part is yet to come, so Pastor Meeks, I'm looking forward to having you on that committee as well. And if we move forward on this, which I think we will, building it and designing what's yet to come is really going to be exciting and a great place for the community to be involved every step of the way. A shout out again to Kevin and the Mills Project for the support that's been in place for this. A lot of work is still to come. So we'll be pushing and stretching and asking for as much as we can. And you've been a great partner, and the Mills Project's been a great partner. So thank you for that. And I will close as well with a big thank you to Dr. Michael Mendez. This project probably wouldn't have been able to get off the ground without your help. So thank you very much for being a partner with me and helping getting this done. And obviously the school district, having the vision to do that as well. And I think I hope my board members will join me in an enthusiastic vote for this.
Thank you, Vice President Hansen. So I just wanted to say a few words. First off, I sent my son to preschool at the Head Start program over on CV Circle, and I drove by the other day, and I just was amazed by the transformation that's happening over there. It doesn't look the same as 19 plus years ago. I won't repeat what my colleagues have said, but your energy is contagious. And as you can tell, we all want this in our areas. We all have areas that have space, as Member Rodriguez pointed out, and we have schools that have gardens that need help, that are ran by PTAs that are transferring out. You get new people in, and they don't know how to take over it. So I hope that later down the road, when you get some more experience in doing this and able to grow, that you'll reach out to the rest of our schools. And lastly, I just wanted to say that I cannot wait to see the fruition of your efforts. No pun intended. So with that, I have Member Wu did a first and Member Arroyo had a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
They didn't get it with us, the cool kids. We do a picture.
We're going to take a quick break to take a picture. always want to sit in your seat for some reason. Say hi to one of my teachers real quick. Get them going.
Forever.
I'm calling this meeting back to order. Can I please have my colleagues back to the dais? Can I please have my colleagues come back to the dais? I know this is exciting. We still have an agenda to get through. Got a form.
Yes.
2, 3, 4. We got enough. Okay. Item 9.2. 2016-17 budget update. Mr. Castillo.
Good evening, President Pritchett, Superintendent Banda, members of the board.
Hold on.
Okay, we're going to continue on with the rest of the meeting, and folks, if you could please step on out.
Got to get Jay back first.
We have a quorum.
Jay, stand in.
I'm going to ask the audience if you please keep your voices down. We're going to move on with our meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, President Pritchett, Superintendent Banda, and members of the board. There is no way we can top that from talking from talking broccoli to boring budgets. Okay, so last Wednesday, members of the staff and member would attend the 2016 governor's budget. We will present to you as a summary of the governor's budget. We will focus what it means for Sacramento City Unified School District. We will go over what it means for the local education, but specifically for Sacramento City Unified School District. We will go over the local control funding formula. We will go some over unresolved issues and the next steps on some closing steps.
Good evening, President Pritchett, Superintendent Banda, and the board. The overall theme for the governor's budget proposal for 2016-17 remains positive, but continues to push for fiscal responsibility. The state revenues continue to increase, and this is mainly due to rising property taxes. The state's economy continues to grow. So it's been several years since the last recession, and we are starting to see a return to normal economic growth rates. So despite all these positives, the governor still highlights the risk of recession. So it's not a question of if there will be another recession, but when. Oh, I need the, oh, you got the. So we must begin to think about the potential for a slowdown. So there's three main factors that have contributed to this increase in education funding and that could change in the near future. Proposition 30, those are temporary taxes that are set to expire in 2018. A growing economy. As we all know, economies go up and down, so this growth cannot be sustained. The maintenance factor repays funds that are owed to education. So when the state repays this debt, funding is shifted from education to other areas of the state budget. So what this means is currently 90% of new state revenues are going to education. During normal years, it's only 40%. After LCFF is fully implemented, districts will no longer receive the gap funding increases, but only a cost of living adjustment or COLA. And unfortunately, that's projected to be between 2% and 3% for the next few years. So if that low rate continues, we could see budget reductions once again. So it's important to be prepared for a slowdown, but also we must advocate for higher K-12 funding. This chart from the Department of Finance projects a COLA-only increase in LCFF of 2.85% in the year 2018-19. As you can see, this doesn't even cover the normal increased costs for step and column and for contributions to retirement. We haven't even included the increasing costs for health care. This graph here shows over a period of 18 years how dramatic funding can change from one year to the next. So California's economy is volatile, which greatly affects school districts because our funding is dependent on the state revenues. So for Sac City, for example, currently 90% of our general fund revenues come from the state. I think we can all agree that investing in education is critical for improving student outcomes. The state has a poor performance record on investing in their students. California ranked 46th in the nation on per pupil expenditures back in 2012-13. Now, keeping in mind that this is before the implementation of LCFF, so we will have to wait and see how LCFF will affect California's national ranking. The main highlights of the governor's proposal includes $2.8 billion increase for LCFF, a $1.6 billion for early education. This is a consolidation of existing programs, so it isn't new funding. There's $1.2 billion for one-time discretionary funds, and this continues the trend of the governor to issue one-time funds rather than make a commitment to ongoing funding streams. There's also over $365 million for Clean Energy Jobs Act, and that must go towards improving energy efficiency. Okay, so what's not included in the budget? Well, there's not a proposal for a statewide facilities bond. The increased employer contribution costs for CalSTRS and CalPERS, that is not addressed in the budget. And there's no new funding for transportation, even though those costs continue to increase. So the employer contributions to retirement started increasing last year. So CalSTRS will more than double in only 6 years to over 19% in 2020-21. And CalPERS will almost double to over 20% in 6 years. So unfortunately, there is no new funding to address these escalating costs. The LCFF is increased by $2.8 billion to continue closing the gap towards full funding. Now, in only the 4th year of implementation, we will be at 95% towards full implementation or full funding. So the increase for Sac City is about $417 per ADA, or $2.2 million more than we originally expected. The $1.2 million in one-time discretionary funds is about $214 per ADA for districts. Now, although this can be used for any one-time purpose, the governor gives recommendations on how to spend those dollars. And that would include induction programs for beginning teachers, professional development, and technology. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it back to Gerardo.
So the governor's budget for January is the beginning, so these numbers most likely will change. But what we know at this point in time in the governor's proposal for Sacramento City Unified School District ongoing revenue is $11.1 million, and you know that is significant and that is big help. But you will notice that yes, with the implementation of class size reduction and 6% projecting for health benefit costs, that takes all the funding that is projected at this point for ongoing costs. So the total difference, like Michael said, from what we projected at the first interim is $2.2 million more than what we mentioned to you in December. What is significant here is the one-time money of $8.1 million. That is new funding. Again, this is one-time funds. So the proper use of one-time funds is paying debt, such as the liability we have for health benefits. We cannot use this money for salaries and benefits ongoing because we could not, with that funding source, is not ongoing. So one of the biggest proposals of the government this year is the consolidation of preschool. We call it the preschool childhood block grant. It consolidates three programs. We like this from Sac City perspective, and that we like this flexibility that this block grant will give us, because it will provide, it will give us more flexibility to work how the funding comes to the district. The details we don't know yet. They will come by the May revision, but we will know that it's very similar to the local control funding formula, where it will give more funding for those districts who have the lowest income and most at-risk children. This is, from our perspective, this is long overdue. So we're happy about this proposal. So Proposition 39 will continue to receive funding about the same as this year, special education. So this is about the programs that are out of the local control funding formula, such as special education and transportation. We will get $2.50 per ADA. So this is what we will be subject once local control funding is fully implemented, just the COLA. So this is one of the areas we had the biggest cost, special education and transportation, and we don't receive $2.50 per ADA. So the federal programs, what we know at this point in time is about the same as this year. So we don't expect any reductions or any increase for federal programs. This is for like Title I and Title II funds. Proposition 30 is set to expire in 2018. The potential impact for Sacramento City is $44 million, or about 10% of the total general fund budget. And Governor Brown does not support extending Proposition 30. So this is what the state feels about our school district reserves. That's pictures worth 1,000 words. So we need to do that. So what are we with you compare what is our fund balance and average. In 2013-14, the latest available data, that average for the unified school districts are over about 13%. We are not even there, and that's just data from 13-14. So the unresolved issues that we have, these are all of them are huge issues. We were thinking about which one of these is the biggest, but we have Proposition 30 set to expire, the post-employment benefits, the increases in rates. So those are really huge issues that we need to think about as we do plan for our finances for a long time. The next steps, we will bring to you our second annual by March 16. We will continue to monitor the state budget, and of course, we will follow the oil cap process and communicate with the board, parents, community, and staff. We just want to finish by saying, we need to remember that decisions during the good times help us get through the bad times. And I want to finish with a quote from Governor Brown today. He said, "The challenge is to solve today's problems without making those of tomorrow even worse. We must focus on how we pay for commitments we already made." And thank you for your time, and we're ready for asking any questions.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
We have one public comment on this item from Darlene Anderson.
Ms. Anderson, come on down.
Good evening. I'll say Happy New Year's to you all. And I'll start by not being negative, but really reaching out to parents who are watching me and to your board members to understand that I had 3 children in this district. My last one is graduating, hopefully this spring. And the reason that they were successful is because I showed up. And simply, a lot of parents don't understand that you cannot put your kids in a public school system and expect them to thrive, because it really is a parent's responsibility. So I had one child who was gifted and in the GATE program. I had one child who had an auditory processing disorder and found out that in the 3rd grade and moved to proficiency. And then there's my baby I had. He is 18 now, and I am 57. But he's autistic. But I'll tell you, he's proficient. And the struggle is to ensure that services still happen for him because he's still disabled. And a lot of parents really don't understand how the system works. And sometimes I come up here and I'm so frustrated because I want to know what you guys are doing to change things, to make it more easier for families. And it has to be the governing board that sets that standard. And so when I see things, then I'm trying to help other families, and I see how things have gone by the wayside for a long time. So we don't have really a safety net for families. And I'm hoping that the board is really going to take on the change that needs to happen in this district to support all families. And so I hate to come up here and be so frustrated sometimes, it's only because what I see for people who are raising children, and I'm almost done. But what about those families where parents really don't understand? And I think that the only way we can be successful is to partner with parents, but parents really have to know that they have to show up. And so I'm just here, and I'm going to keep on coming to ensure that, encourage parents to come, even if they don't understand, reach out for other parents who are more involved in the system to be more engaged in the services and how those services work, because failure is never an option for public services. So thank you, and good night.
Second Vice President Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for continuing to show up. And frankly, I value deeply your commitment not just to your children, but to all children in Sac City Unified. So we appreciate your voice. I wanted to ask Gerardo a question and just make a comment and follow up on the proposed preschool early childhood education block grant. I know right now we're exploring as part of our strategic plan and our conversations around district priorities moving forward, really making a bold statement around ensuring that all students in Sacramento City Unified School District have access to 2 years of quality early childhood education. And I just wanted to point out, with this proposed consolidation of the state preschool programs, the transitional kindergarten, and the preschool quality ratings, we know right now that, as you shared, there are no details in the proposal, but a lot can change between January and May. And frankly, this governor, much more than just about any other governor in the past, makes policy through the budget process. And so I would encourage this district to look at how we could shape that proposal. The Department of Finance is looking for voices on how best to do this. And if this is something that can help us expedite this work, then frankly, I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't utilize our expertise to weigh in.
We will. Just want to let you know from our perspective, this program, the funding source is very complicated and it's very cumbersome. So a lot of requirements, like you don't meet this standard. So we are very happy for that, and when we see that, we will participate.
So I just one item and follow up, Gerardo. I absolutely understand that these can be very cumbersome, but it's our obligation, right, to our students to figure out a way to navigate that. And beyond that, there is an opportunity to provide feedback on where we feel that, the detail or level of additional hurdles is preventing students, in particular the highest need students, from accessing these programs.
Thank you.
Do I have any other board comment? Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. We were arguing about who to go first, right? No, you go. Okay. So I want to start with slide 5.
I know which one. I got it.
Right. So this is, and unfortunately I was grabbing a cup of tea, so this is a slide that I missed. So I kind of want to talk to you about this one a little bit. So this is saying that as a 16-17, we're not going to receive any additional funding, only for COLAs?
No, this is like it's kind of like continuation from the previous one. The governor is proposing that after the gap funding for local control is covered, we will go back to the normal COLAs that we used to have. And we remember back when we had a COLAs, oftentimes the point of this is that we had to make reductions for that because the COLA was not enough to cover ongoing costs. Like when you don't have. That's what it means.
Okay. So
not for 16, 17, but I think it's the most is for 18, 19.
when the tax expires. Is that what you're trying to say? Okay. Yeah, it's been so long since we've had a COLA, right?
Yeah, they used to be, that used to be
2008, 9? Yeah.
that used to be the normal, yeah.
I almost forgot about those days. I've been here too long as a board member. I think stressing on that one-time funds, and we've got to make sure that we're planning for the future. I can't tell you enough. I think we were here back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, when we were making all of these cuts. And I think I had sounded like a broken record, is that, we're in a strange economic time right now where this is the longest downfall in the economy of which we've been dealing with. But I had warned people that when we do get money, we had to be wise about this expenditure of that money because things work in a cyclical manner. And so we're up right now, but we're expecting to do another downward trend, especially in public education with the temporary tax expiring. So I thank you for bringing that up. And it's something that's not...
And it was very, very, very painful days.
I don't wish that on any other. I think myself and Member Royal are the only two that have been up here fighting for the cause.
And those districts who have, because the cuts were across the state, but those districts who have reserves, who they knew they were planning, they were better prepared than we were.
Exactly, and that's kind of the thing that I think that was our theme all the time. I remember Member Royal with his leaky faucets. He wants to go around and tighten up everywhere we were losing money, and then I remember discussions of we've gone beyond cutting to the bone. We're cutting off limbs now. It's horrible to be in that situation because the face that is going to take the brunt of that, and it's going to be the children. And that's ultimately why we're all here, right? We're all here for the children. We're not here for ourselves. It's definitely one of the things that we all have to keep in the forefront. We're in the business of educating children. So on slide number 10, so we're saying that there's no proposal for a school-wide school facilities bond program.
Yes, the governor is not the proposal that's on the table here did not endorse it. He's not approving. There might be one, but not from the governor's perspective. But what we hear is that he wants to change that. He likes to see some changes in the proposal. And Kathy might know a lot more than me about the area. So
So the Coalition for Adequate School Housing and the Building Industry Association have partnered and through the initiative process have a $9 billion bond on the November ballot. That won't change regardless of what the governor tries to do. He has talked about trying to work with the legislature to get a smaller bond on the June ballot, but also, as Gerardo says, wants some significant program changes, as do those of us in the facilities community. But that kind of process takes a long, long time. So he's pretty much running out of time to get something on the June ballot. He has to have a 2/3 approval of both houses. So the cash bond will go on, and there may be something on the June ballot, but we're moving forward with a $9 billion bond in November, and it will be under the existing program guidelines that are in place today. The school facilities program, as we've known and loved it since 1998. So.
Thank you for that explanation. And then the no new funding to address the increased employer contributions to CalSTRS and CalPERS. What does that mean for our district?
So that means that we are paying, that statement in the next go hand in hand. Actually, this statement helping explain is that, for the retirement costs that we're paying, we will almost double for both CalSTRS and CalPERS that we're paying. So that's the employer's portion of the retirement. So this is the raise that increase, and you will notice that they are increasing about 2% every year. So we are in by 16-17 is 12.15A, but when we finish, it will be 19.10 for CalSTRS in 20. It means that for every dollar, the best way that I could explain it for everybody to understand it, for every dollar that we pay in salary, we have to pay 20 cents for retirement system. That's what that means.
Currently, our contribution is just an estimate.
It is our total. The total. I don't know that happened, but I know it's like over $10 million for that.
$10 million. So by the
It
time
is more than that.
by the time we're at 2020, we're looking at $20 million. And are we currently able to fulfill that?
Yeah, we have to. Those are like taxes. That's what it is that you have to pay those. Your Social Security, your taxes, the FICA is just you don't have you have to do that. We belong us in the retirement system. We have to pay that. So the thing is what I would say that's scary is when we go to those years is the funding will stop. As we are getting used to now for the last 2-3 years, and now we need to think about that very careful.
Yeah, because what I hear you explaining is they just come in and take the money, right? I mean, it's like taxes. We have to pay it. They take it out. They said, well, somewhere else in your budget, we're taking our money.
We send a wire payment to
exactly. So whether we can afford $20 million or not, they just take it.
Yeah, we
wire it to them, but yeah,
we have to pay that. So we don't have money from someplace else. We have to pay that. So
it's a mandatory cost.
It's a statutory. What I call that is one of the statutory benefits or requirements. Mm-hmm.
And which could really devastate this district if we don't have the ability to pay that. Which means that we have to do other measures.
So that's why the funding from the governor. Yes, we're getting a lot of money, but for every dollar you take out, eventually 20 cents. So there's not really you're not really getting the whole dollar.
Yeah.
So
that sounds awful, doesn't it? And then we have the discretionary funds of the one-time use money. I know it says here that the governor is suggesting or encouraging districts to use this for content standards implementation, technology, professional development, induction programs. So in essence, one-time things that are not going to be ongoing.
Correct.
I wonder if we could also, use that one time for maybe, we're going to have a shortage of staffing, and maybe we get a little innovative on how we use those one-time funds, for that type of purpose, for recruitment and incentives on bringing in new people. But also, I wonder if it wouldn't be a wise idea to use some of that to address, in essence, like a payment of sorts into our unfunded liability.
Yeah, we could use for all of those items that you say is really discretionary, and whatever the board approves that, we could use that. It's unrestricted. Those are just recommendations from the governor, but they are not. It's not required. So this money is really unrestricted. He just wanting us, you just having it one time. He has been. That's his. I told Mike he's the king of one-time money. We had like 3 years money, but he doesn't give it until he has the money. That's what it is. So yeah. So you can use it for all of those purposes.
And on slide 14, when we're talking about covering counselors with general fund unrestricted money, that's a direct result of what the parents and community requested from the LCAP. Is that what I'm seeing?
For the
fixed cost already that we committed to?
Yeah, so that was, I think, the K3 class size reduction we hear over and over again in the LCAP process, the class size reduction. We were not able to do it in the previous years, but that's the main reason the board listened to the superintendent, to the community, and that's where we are,
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just specifically talking about the counselors, though.
The counselors, oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. Yeah. Yes, the counselors, in that part of the counselors is, we increase the counselors, but this part is the schools were funding, so this is not an increase of counselors, but the schools were paying it with their own categorical money. So what in this proposal is, instead of they paying it with their own categorical money with Title I or LTFA funds, we're paying it, covering up out of it's LTFA, but it's district covering from central. So that way the schools, high school, use their funds for other purposes.
Okay.
So that's what that
For
is.
other Title I needs,
Mm-hmm.
which
Correct.
then leaves more money for those students.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what it is. Sorry, I did not hear you when you were talking.
Okay. So we're not getting more counselors. We're
We,
just
no, we are not. We are not. This is not a. It's just shifting in funding.
a cost shift.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's an increase for the school size because they can use the money for other purposes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for always keeping this board alert about ensuring that we think ahead into the future. Trust us for the new ones that haven't lived through the number of years of cuts that were painful to make. If we make the right decisions today, the decisions down the road when we don't have the money will be that less painful for everyone that's on the board in the future. So thank you.
Vice President Hansen.
Thank you. Just really a couple points, not really any questions, but echoing the responsibility that the governor has asked of the state legislature and really all of us in local government across the state to be responsible with the budget. Having worked in the legislature for almost 2 decades, the money comes, the money goes, it's up and it's down. We all know that's going to happen. And though it notes, your budget notes that there'll be COLAs, we know at some point in time COLAs will stop, and then we're going to be responsible for still having to pay for the increases that are just normal, that are going to happen. We have an increase in the STRS that's going to be gigantic, and it's a shared cost. There's a little bit paid for by the state. There's a little bit more paid for by the teachers, but the vast majority of that is paid for by the district and the general fund. It's going to be a gigantic increase that we haven't even put into our budget yet. Realistically, healthcare costs for all of our employees is growing. I think this slide had 6% growth. We can anticipate that's right in the area where it's going to be every year in perpetuity. That cost all by itself could force us to increase class sizes, to do cuts to staff, to defer maintenance further, to do all those kinds of things. So when I talk to folks in our community, I get asked more often than not about fiscal responsibility, and that's what the public is demanding of us and wants of us. And we have to remember, only 1 out of 3 people in the Sacramento City Unified School District area have children in the schools. 2/3 do not. And we're lucky that we have a community that highly values public education and the work that we all do here. So unless we stay fiscally responsible, we're not going to have that continued support from from everybody in our whole district to support bonds, to support special increases, or to support our schools. So we have a duty to do that. That all being said, we absolutely have to pay our staff the most that we can. We absolutely have to be competitive. We need to be able to have the best employees that we can provide for. I want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that we keep the promises that we made. We all know we have a gigantic, I think we're in the top 5 in the entire state of California for unfunded healthcare liabilities. And I also know, and I think folks in the audience and watching on TV know, the state Supreme Court has allowed districts to break their obligations for healthcare benefits. You're not allowed to break your obligations for pension benefits, but a local district can break their obligation for healthcare benefits. And if this district ever found itself in a position like other local governments have, the promises that we've made to our employees for lifetime medical or other, whatever the medical benefits are, could be broken. And that's a place I don't ever want to be. If someone's assuming that they're going to have that and has been promised that by us and by their negotiating team, we need to be providing that for them. And I'm committed to making sure it's there, but that means we have to start funding it. And this district and bargaining teams in the past have done a disservice to our employees by not funding that as the promises were made. And we need to stop doing that. We've got to do the right thing that I think you've proposed in budgets, and superintendent and staff and this board has supported of increasing the amount of money to pay for this huge unfunded liability, so we keep the promises to the people that have made a big dedication work-wise to our district. We need to keep that at the forefront. So there's no better use for one-time money for doing projects like that, a one-time cost. Why you can't keep building items into the budget that are going to be paid for in perpetuity. We've seen what happened when the state did that. I was there when they made very poor decisions. And, frankly, this district's made poor decisions in the past, and I think it's incumbent on this board to stop digging the hole deeper. It's called the first rule of holes, stop digging. So we need to do that. But, there's a lot of pressure on doing the right thing with the budget. And I hope we can find a balanced way to go forward with everyone being responsible and sitting at the table together, and all of us being realistic about that with our constituents and recognizing, taking care of our students, our employees, and our taxpayers. So I think the continuing presentations that we get from you are critical for us to be the best decision makers we can. I appreciate that, and I look forward to keeping us updated on this so we can all make sure we're doing those best informed decisions that we can make.
Thank you. Thank you for always giving your expertise and keeping our board abreast of these oncoming issues and I don't really want to call it issues. That's a bad word. This is an informational item, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item 9.3, monthly facilities update. Ms. Allen? This is also an information item.
Good evening again. Joining me tonight is Kathy Domenico, a principal with the firm Capital Public Finance Group. They are our financial advisors and work to keep us out of trouble. So we're going to go through a presentation somewhat similar to what you've seen in the past, but we've added a little bit more detail for you. We're showing it in a different way. You have some backup. You have a 22-page handout as backup, which summarizes Q&R expenditures, and so they're divided into three categories: completed, which means they've been closed out through the books actually, and then in progress, and then future, and we'll refer to that document as we go through the PowerPoint. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, and I'm going to tag team as we need to.
So we've come back to you every year, basically over the past 3 years, to really kind of prep you for what's been done with bonds that have been issued or plan to be issued, and then talk about the next series of bonds. This time we're going to take a little bit different approach and talk more about the projects, the projects that money has been expended on, and the plan for future projects. So it's a little less focused on the bonds and more focused on the projects themselves. That's mostly because we really don't have a large bond issuance plan for this year, so we aren't really gearing up for a lot of new money coming in. But we're at a situation where we really need to make sure that the board's aware of how money has been spent and provide any kind of policy direction moving forward. Just to give you some background and remind everybody of the overall bond plan, back in 2012, the district approved the Sustainable Facilities Master Plan. It contemplated about $2 billion of capital needs, and again, back in 2012 dollars. So over time, as construction costs increase, that $2 billion becomes something more. In November of 2012, the district successfully passed Measures Q and R. Measure Q was about $346 million, and Measure R was for $68 million. In 2013, you issued the first series of bonds from both Q and R. It was a total of $70 million to really get the project started. And about $43 million of that went to Measure Q, and about 27 of that went to Measure R. And then last May, you issued another $90 million of Measure Q bonds. So that's really kind of the seed money that started the projects to date. I want to just remind you a little bit about the 2012 bond measure ballot language, as well as the board's original project allocations, just to kind of give you some perspective as we move forward. Measure Q was really that core academic bond. And when I talk about 2013 original project allocations, of the total bond authorization, the district really wasn't going to be able to issue all of the bonds. And we'll talk more about that in detail later. But part of that had to do with the tax rate promise set to the voters, as well as the assessed value in the community. All of those things play into the amount of bonds that can be issued. To be conservative and to not aggressively issue bonds, although you had a large authorization, we were recommending you take a more conservative approach and only plan for projects from the bonds that we knew we could issue with reasonable assumptions between 2012 and 2021. So we came up with some project allocations based on that kind of lower issuance amount, with the recommendation that we would revisit that every year to see what was happening in the economy, see what was happening with assessed value, and see if we could eventually squeeze in all of the additional bonds. So at the time, back in 2013, we were anticipating about $243 million of Measure Q bonds could be issued. They would be allocated in the following categories: the core academic renovations, and you may recall those are the specific projects that were called out in the ballot language at 9 schools. So their core academic renovations were to be spent at Albert Einstein, American Legion, C.K. McClatchy, Hiram Johnson, John F. Kennedy, Kit Carson, Luther Burbank, Sacramento, and West Campus. The reason I'm stating those is because the ballot language itself called out those particular school sites for the core academic renovation portion of the budget. That was set at in 2013 at $122 million. As we move forward, that number has really stayed the same, and we've tried to stay true to that number because of the key promise that was made to the voters. Additional project categories include modernization, repair, and upgrade projects. The time of budget was about $42 million. Technology upgrades with a budget of about $28 million. District-wide fire and irrigation improvements with a budget about $8 million, resource and energy conservation improvements or Project Green at about $5 million, and then ongoing funds and operations. And that was at the time set at about $37 million, and that was to include program administration, bond issuance costs, as well as project contingencies. The thinking has kind of shifted on that a little bit, so as we move forward, that budget has actually been reduced because the project contingencies have actually been moved into the projects themselves as opposed to a separate line item in the overall pie. Looking over at Measure R, we were estimating about $58 million. Back in 2013, about $58 million could be issued out of Measure R. That money was to be spent on athletics, health and safety improvements. A lot of that has been spent to date, as you'll see in a few minutes. A nutrition services center, about $30 million there. And then again, ongoing funds and operations. Really the same type of category as you saw with Measure Q. So let's talk about kind of where we were with the total bond dollars and kind of what's happened over time. So I mentioned 414 million of bonds were authorized back in 2012 between Measures Q and R. Based on conservative assumptions, based on what the assessed value was in the community, based on the bond interest rates, and using a conservative bond structure, we were advising the district to plan projects based on a bond issuance amount of $302.5 million between basically 2012 and 2021. Additional bonds would be able to be issued to the extent that assessed value growth allowed, or would be issued sometime after 2021, but we weren't really ready to recommend that you plan projects based on a larger bond amount at that time. And again, we would revisit it every year and give you more feedback, and if we could squeeze out additional dollars, we would provide that recommendation. So in August 2014, assessed value grew in the community by 4.42%, which was more than we had anticipated. So that enabled the district to plan to issue additional bonds. So in following May, based on bond interest rates at the time we issued and the assessed value growth, we were able to get another about 35 million. So 337 million was the estimate at the time of 2015. That was kind of the last number we really brought to the board. Last year, assessed value grew again by more than anticipated, about 4.73%. At this point, we're thinking we can get about another 7 million out of the bonds if issued in 2016. So that's really what we're looking at, is based on a slightly higher assessed value growth rate. We're looking at an overall $344 million bond program at this point through 2021. So let's dig into measures Q and R, and specifically how the project money has been allocated based on the bonds that have been issued to date. So we've issued a couple series of bonds. Out of measure Q, we've issued about just under 133 million. And this pie chart is showing the allocation of these projects since 2012. So again, measures Q and R went into place in 2012. We're showing the expenditures from 2012. The district does have a couple of previous bond measures, measures E and I. If that sounds familiar. Those project expenditures are not really showing up in this particular pie chart. You'll notice the difference that there's been some shifts in project expenditures since those original 2013 allocations to what the current expenditures are. Things have changed. I'm going to use an example of the district-wide fire and irrigation improvements. There are laws in place that we weren't aware of at the time in 2013, so there's been additional money spent on those required expenditures. There have been technology upgrades that weren't planned back in 2013 that have costed almost $36 million. Some of that includes the Workday and the Infinite Campus programs. Core academic renovations, those are on track. Those are the beginning of the core academic renovations at the 9 schools. Modernization, repair, and upgrade projects, again, about 31 million there. Those are some of your deferred maintenance projects, your roofing projects, paving, asphalt, things like that. Ongoing funds and operations, I mentioned that was a smaller number because we went from including project contingencies down to really just having program administration costs and bond administration costs. Resource and energy conservation improvement projects, that's the Project Green amount, and it's really stayed right on budget. There's an additional category that was added between 2013 and what you're seeing here, and that's for program enhancements. You see a $6 million allocation. That's specifically for the projects at Judah. The program enhancement project looking forward, and we'll see in a little while, also includes some additional projects at Washington, William Land, class size reduction that weren't specifically contemplated back in 2013 that are shown up in the current expenditure schedule. Looking at Measure R, you see pretty much right on budget with the athletic fields, gym locker room, and as well as the health and safety projects. Ongoing fund and operations are funding the bond expenditures and program expenses. And then you see a really small sliver for the Nutrition Services Center. In 2015, we'd originally planned to issue some bonds to fund the land acquisition for the Nutrition Services Center. But back basically in January, we had a discussion. There was no property specifically identified for that. And when we go to issue bonds, you need to have project expenditures planned in order to validly issue the bonds, because our bond counsel is going to want to confirm that you're not just issuing money to issue money, that you actually have a plan for that money. Since we didn't have land set aside, we actually plan to defer that $7 million issuance of bonds until 2016. So that $7 million designated for the phase 1 of the Nutrition Services Center is planned to be issued in 2016. So you're not seeing expenditures yet because essentially those bonds have not been issued. So let's take a more detailed look at the project expenditures since 2012. And again, I want to clarify, this is really out of that Q and R pot. This doesn't go back to the measures E and I. But as we go through this, I think we can talk a little bit about some of the prior expenditures at some of the areas to really kind of get a better picture of the investment into school facilities in the district. So we've organized the expenditures by trustee area just to give you an idea of the completed, in progress, and planned bond projects that are really going to cover that $337 million of bond dollars that have been allocated. Just kind of looking at trustee area 1, and to give you a little background on the tables, most of the expenditures are coming out of Q. There is a notation with a little R next to it that shows if some bond dollars have been applied to those particular campuses. Out of our bond dollars have been applied towards it. Just to call out one of the large expenditures on there, McClatchy. That, of course, is one of the core academic renovation sites. So you see kind of a large expenditure there. Anything else you want to call out on these?
And that includes the work that we did at the gym and the auxiliary gym out of R. So California Middle, same thing. That was essentially their gym and their expansion, and then what's planned for the future.
Trustee Area 2, you've got Hiram Johnson as one of the core academic renovation projects, as well as Kit Carson. Trustee Area 3, one of the core academic renovation projects is Albert Einstein. And Kathy, maybe you want to explain Rosemont and some of the expenditures for that out of the previous bond.
So Rosemont was built out of a combination of E and I and state in 2000. I think we started in 2006, and actually George Washington Carver as well was about that same time frame, and those two schools together totaled about $108 million, and again paid for out of E and I, and back when we had state funds, which was kind of nice. So, and again, I wasn't here when the bond language was being drafted, but I think that would be the logical reason to not include Rosemont in one of the core academic renovation projects because it's still relatively new. So in its place, the district identified Albert Einstein to receive some core academic renovation.
Trustee Area 4, the core academic renovation here is over at West Campus. Looking at 5, Luther Burbank is one of the sites for the core academic renovation. And then Area 6, John F. Kennedy is kind of large dollar allocation there, again, core academic renovation. And finally, Area 7, both American Legion and Sacramento are on the list for the core academic renovation, as well as the other expenditures. Looking district-wide, so there are some projects that we really couldn't assign to particular school sites. So we're calling them district-wide expenditures because they essentially benefited schools throughout the district. And this is a summary of the projects, the money that's been completed, the projects that are in progress, and then the projects that are planned. And you'll see that totals just about $102 million. So there's a large chunk that's not really assigned specifically to a site. About $40 million of that is the budget for the Nutrition Services Center. That would be out of Measure R. And then about $28 million of budgeted technology upgrades. Some of that includes computer hardware replacement, software licensing and support, installation of battery backup systems at all school sites, and then the phase 2 of the phone equipment upgrades to the VoIP systems. So let's dig in a little bit on the bond issuance plan, because things have, of course, changed since last year, and they're going to keep changing every year. This is a chart that this board has seen every year, and I'm going to keep showing it to you, because really it's telling you what's happening with the assessed value in their community. And that's important because bonds are repaid based on the amount of assessed value in your community. So to the extent that the assessed value is increasing, it's going to help the tax rate situation that your taxpayers are paying. To the extent that assessed value decreases, it causes harm to the taxpayer. So what we try to do is first be very conservative in our assumptions so that when you've issued bonds and you're repaying the debt on the bonds, the tax rates are no more than what you promised the voters. And you promised a tax rate of $54 per 100,000 of assessed value. So when we issue bonds, we remind you of that. We talk to you about what assessed value is, and we talk to you about the assumptions used so that you're comfortable that we're not going to be wrong. And if we're wrong to the good, not to the bad. Over the last 3 years, we've actually had some pretty good increases in assessed value with a growth of about 4.73% last year. I don't want you to think that this is necessarily a trend for the future. And although this is great, and we've talked about economic recovery, a lot of this is the recoup of the value that was reassessed downwards during the recession. And those properties are kind of catching up. For the most part, most of the single-family residential properties have caught up. So we aren't going to see that kind of growth from a lot of your single-family residential properties in your area. But your tax base does have some room for growth. Downtown Sacramento is experiencing a renaissance, a big transformation. Your district will benefit from value from downtown that we really haven't seen yet in our assessed value. 15 properties, substantial properties, changed hands in downtown Sacramento over the last year. And when I say substantial value, we're talking millions and millions of dollars. That hasn't been captured here. We're also not accounting for that when we're using projections for future bond issuances. So we're not going to count on it till we actually get it. We know what's happening. We've talked to the county. We understand what's happening in value. But when we're projecting bonds to be issued and we're projecting future assessed value growth, we're just going to take that as it comes. And once we see the growth, we'll continue to project based on essentially a 2% growth, which is relatively conservative given Prop 13. So at this point, the district has issued, and we've talked about this already, about 133 million, actually 132.9 million out of Measure Q, and has issued 27.1 million out of Measure R. Some of those series of bonds were qualified school construction bonds, or QSIBs. Those were the low-interest loans. They're essentially 0% loans that the district received an allocation from the federal government and was able to issue about 26.4 million out of Q and 13.6 million out of R at 0% interest. That's great, and I always want to bring that up because that's something you should be proud of. You really took advantage of a federal program, and as a result, your taxpayers are paying 0% interest on a lot of money. We note on there that in 2016, and the board saw this last year, we scheduled an issuance of $7 million. Based on assessed value growth over the last year, we anticipate that the district could issue an additional $7 million from either Q or R this year. So in addition to the $7 million from R, you could do an additional $7 million if you would like to. We would be taking advantage of taxes under that $54 this year and next year. If you defer that $7 million issuance, it becomes about $3 million. So if we were going to combine it with the $95 million issuance, that would only go from 95 to 98. It wouldn't be a true jump of $7 million because we're taking advantage of tax collections over the next 2 years. You can then issue an additional $95 million next year and $75 million the following year out of either Measures Q or R. Up to $33.9 million of that can be issued out of Measure R. What's left is about $70 million of bonds that are authorized that at this point we're saying don't plan your projects before 2021. We just don't know that there's enough value to support that within your tax rate limitations. So let's kind of sum it up. And Kathy and I keep referring to this as the big math problem. We've got our bond proceeds, we have our planned projects, and then what's left. And I'm actually going to start on the Measure R side because it's easier. There's a total of about $337 million, that number again, of anticipated bond proceeds between now and 2021. About $67 million of that we can allocate to Measure R. $27 million is already either spent or in progress, so there's not much we can do with that. And we budgeted about $40 million for the Nutrition Services Center. Why? At this point, that is a budget number. You don't have a piece of land identified, and until land's identified, that budget really can't be refined much more. So R is essentially balanced out, and it would only leave about $1 million of remaining authorization of R. Over on the Measure Q side, we're estimating about $270 million can be issued out of Measure Q. About $133.6 million is already allocated to projects that are completed or in progress. You've got about $57 million of remaining core academic renovations in order to get you to that $122 million figure. You've got $57 million of planned modernization, repair, and upgrade projects. $10.15 million of planned program enhancement projects. Those are the projects at Washington, William Land, and the class size reduction projects that have been added since 2012, and about $28 million budgeted for planned technology projects. So when we subtract out all of those planned projects, so we're zeroed out over an R, we're taking $270 million and subtracting out all these plans, we're actually at a negative figure. We're at a negative $16.5 million. I mentioned we can issue that $7 million this year. That really brings our shortfall, if we decide to move forward with that, to about $9.5 million. Now, we're not asking the board to solve this problem. In fact, just to put it in perspective, that negative $16 million is about 5% of your overall bond expenditure program. So a lot of that can be absorbed. So we're not actually asking you for a solution at this point. We want to bring to your attention, though, that for the most part, based on the projects we feel comfortable planning, your money is spent. To fund that shortfall, again, we can issue the $7 million of bonds if desired by the board. some of this is going to work itself out. So between 2020, now and 2021, we'll probably have additional assessed value growth that we haven't counted on, that we can reasonably issue some additional bonds out of. There may be some project budget savings. We mentioned the contingencies are in several of the line items for the project budgets. So some of the contingencies may absorb some of that shortfall. If not, you can defer some of your additional either deferred maintenance projects or technology projects or other projects beyond 2021 when you would be able to issue kind of that remaining $70 million. But just as a board and something to think about, to the extent that additional projects are desired that aren't specifically spelled out in these allocations, we would need to reduce specific project budgets. So from a policy perspective, we look for direction for, okay, if we're going to add more dollars here, what pot does that come out of and what are we adjusting? So really the conclusion of this is, number one, that $7 million is going to help you a little if you decide to move forward with it this year. And number two, there really isn't any money left unless we're able to squeeze out additional bonds, which we can't count on right now. So if there are projects in need, where does that come from? And provide direction to staff on that. See if you have any questions.
We have no public comment. Well, okay. Do we have board discussion? Okay. No board discussion. Oh. Thank you. I'm like, where's everybody? Second Vice President Ryan.
Thank you. I appreciate your thorough and informative presentation. As a board member who's newer to the board, I'm still trying to get up to speed on this process, and I appreciate Kathy Allen's willingness to engage around conversation on this. So, I want to bring up several questions and points. I have to say, just to frame this conversation, I am incredibly dismayed and disheartened to see the disproportionate spending across areas. So I represent Area 7, the poorest, most diverse area in all of Sacramento, an area that I know campaigned hard for Measures Q and R. And yet we received the least amount of money in both money spent and projected spending to a tune of $24,917,000. I just want to point out that is almost a $28 million differential between Area 1 and about a $25 million differential between Area 2, two of the most affluent areas in all of Sacramento City Unified School District. That's unconscionable to me when I visit school sites that I know could benefit greatly from these dollars. So my first question is, how are funds prioritized across trustee areas and school sites? And then I have some follow-up conversation.
So the only funds that are dedicated to specific school sites are the core academic renovation dollars. The 9 sites that were identified in the bond language, $122 million. Those 9 sites in the master plan total, the need at those 9 sites total $336 million. We didn't have $336 million. So we prorated at the beginning of the bond allocation down to $122 million. So not all 9 sites were $10, $10, $10, $10, right, because sites are bigger, smaller, more needs were identified, less needs were identified. So if your trustee core academic school started out needing $20, and Gustavo, yours was $18, then we adjusted everything down accordingly. So everybody got reduced by the same amount of percentage to get us to that $122 million. And as Kathy said, we've been really holding on to that dollar amount, not wanting to cut into that for any other funds. The bigger pot would be the deferred maintenance program, as most of this is on this 22-page here. What's interesting about this work that we've been doing over the last month or so, we have a 5-year deferred maintenance plan. It's no longer required by the state, hasn't been for quite some time, but Barry and his staff do a super good job of keeping that document up to date. And it literally shows what the 5-year deferred maintenance needs are district-wide, not by trustee area, but district-wide and by categories that were identified by the state at one time. And then we update that periodically. We try and do it every year, but it's a pretty large, intense document, so we might be off a little bit. And back in the days when the state funded deferred maintenance programs, then we were able to actually knock off some of those projects. So we would look at 2016, we've got 13 roofs and 12, whatever, there was 13 categories, I forget what the categories are, and we would start knocking those projects off, and then whatever we couldn't get done in that year because of lack of funds or time would get deferred, to the following year. So each year, whatever you got done, awesome, whatever you didn't get done gets deferred. So our deferred maintenance needs total right now, how much, Barry, roughly? About $80 million. So what the plan projects show are his needs through 2021 based on that plan. So the nice thing about it, or a thing about it, is that when Barry sits down with his staff, all the supervisors of the trades, they talk about district-wide needs. So we have a roofing shop, and they say the roof over here is, needs to be replaced. We've had work orders galore. We know we have to go fix it. They don't attach that to a trustee area. So it truly is an unbiased look at the district as a whole in terms of the building itself. So the bulk of that money is actually derived from the deferred maintenance plan. And then we go back and we look at the Sustainable Facilities Master Plan to make sure that we're not missing something that was in the master plan that we didn't pick up in the deferred maintenance plan. So it's never going to be equal. I agree, it's very lopsided. We've run some spreadsheets on what happens if we add ERP money in there, what happens if it's just DM and ERP, what happens if it's just bond, and that's what we're looking at tonight is just bond. If you add ERP money, which your area actually did get the most because more decile 1 through 3 schools in your area, then your percentage of overall expenditures jumps up to about 27%. Not bond money, but it is ERP money.
Okay.
So, I don't have a way to tell you that I can make it even, but the good news is that we don't look at trustee area boundaries when we decide deferred maintenance projects.
So let me ask you, what is the process for putting in the work orders and actually being considered for deferred maintenance? What I think I'm getting at, and I do want to state, is I do happen to know that there are some schools that are much more on top of putting in those work orders. And when I look at some of these projects that have been funded and the allocations, the amounts, they tend to be constituencies that are a bit more vocal in terms of the schools across the district. And then I have a question about some of the new projects that were not originally anticipated.
So for your first question, there's a big difference in the funding source. So work orders tend to come out of Barry's general fund, right? He gets a dollar amount every year to run his maintenance department. So as work orders are put in, they are for things truly like maintenance. Fix my faucet that's leaking, fix my carpet that's kind of torn or I'm tripping on, come take down a tree because the limb fell. So it's actually for maintenance projects. Deferred maintenance projects are bigger, much more costlier. I need the roof replaced. A good example of a deferred maintenance project that we had never anticipated was CB Wire. If you remember, we lost every HVAC unit on that building to vandalism. Well, what are we going to do? We are still utilizing that school for some things. So, we ended up having to install new HVAC. That's a deferred maintenance project and not a maintenance project. Come fix my broken HVAC in room 2, that's a maintenance project. So we have 8,000 work orders. That's how backlogged we are, mostly because of resources, because of time, money, et cetera, and the aging of our facilities. So we concentrate, and I've shared this with you before, on fire, life, and safety. So if it's a fire, life, and safety work order, those go to the top. And President Pritchett, I'll pick on you a little bit because she's been advocating to get a fence painted at Rosemont. That's not fire, life, and safety. Does it need to be done? Of course it needs to be done. It's on the list. We know it's there, but it doesn't rise to the level of a fire, life, and safety issue, whereas numerous potholes in the driveway out there, I don't know if there are, that would be more of a fire, life, and safety issue.
Big crack.
It's a big crack. We have lots of cracks. So if you have lots of 5-inch cracks, then it jumps to a number
It's pretty
1.
large. You might want to go look at it.
So, we do go through a methodology, and we apply it district-wide on how do we determine, we have a lot of blacktop that have a lot of 5-inch cracks, right? So we even have a methodology to say if you have more than 10 5-inch cracks, you're a higher one than you are if you only have 2 5-inch cracks. So, it's pretty detailed. It's very detailed. Would love to share it with you. It's a massive document, but it is, it's kind of the Bible. It's what we look at when we are trying to do projects. Now, having said that, I will say, because this is a district by trustee area, when we put our summer project list together, we do look and say, do we have projects in your area? Do we have projects in your area? And we do kind of shuffle things around. So if there's a higher amount of projects in trustee area 4 and we don't have any in 2, or maybe only 1 and 2, then we'll go pull another 1 and maybe drop something down. So we do try and make sure that everybody has got a fair amount of projects. But our needs do vary widely, district-wide. I mean, it's not every roof is in the same shape. The most neediest school from a child perspective may not be the most neediest school from a facilities perspective. So it's just a different way. When we look at it across the board as equity, it's not equity in the most neediest areas, it's equity in the building. So
let me ask you, with the program enhancement projects that were not originally slated, so specifically Washington, William Land, Theodore Judah. So Washington and William Land totaled about $8.5 million. Theodore Judah was an additional $7.5 million. How did those projects come to be, and what was the designation or the monetary amount? How was that determined?
So Judah's actually scheduled at about 6. So
okay. So here it says
there's some other projects like Project Green that were done there. We did a cafeteria project there. So the new 2-story is budgeted about 6. I'm hoping it doesn't come in at 6, but I don't want to be caught short. That's how that project got on the board. That's quite started before a lot of us. Former board member Cuneo was part of that process. When Washington was closed, the 2 receiving school sites were William Land and Judah. So through that kind of parceling out of the children and a little bit of growth in the area, McKinley Village came online. We were actually going to solve the problem by bringing the 2-story modular from Freeport over to Judah. Their community got very involved and active, and they have a local architect who's very much involved with that school and offered to try and design something that would be a little bit more palatable to the community, and thus we are now going to get a 2-story stick-built building designed by that architect.
And with the Washington Elementary, was that $4 million allocation before the decision to reopen the school?
I'm sorry, was it a what before?
Was it a decision to put the $4 million into project enhancements before the decision to reopen the school?
No. So I'm confused.
So it says that Washington was not one of the original program enhancement projects. So I guess I'm asking, in terms of the timeline, was the decision to make that investment made prior to the school's closure, prior to the decision to reopen? Okay.
So the decision to reopen was made, I think, in August. The board took action in August, and then we started assigning a dollar amount to it.
And so that $4 million is just since then?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm hoping I can do it for $4 million.
So, okay. So, I just want to provide a real world example to this. I appreciate the complexity of these issues and how the formula for spreading out allocation occurs. But, as we're looking at a close to whether it's $6 million or $7 million enhancement at Theodore Judah, a $4 million enhancement to Washington Elementary, which I very much supported the reopening of. This comes at the same time where, Ms. Allen, I'm having to call about a lack of fencing and the resulting safety issues such as syringes in the play yards of the backgrounds of my schools, glass that our students are having to navigate and step over. And I have to say, it is very telling to me, irrespective of how we allocate our resources, that in my area, these programs continue to persist, and yet additional $3 million allocations in these areas that I have once again said are more affluent and mobilized move forward. And frankly, I wish I had constituents here tonight to speak to it, because I know this will be a continued conversation in my area.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I guess it's no secret that many of us, probably 4 of us on this board, are looking at this as a point of inequity. And so I guess I'll just say, ladies and gentlemen of the board, superintendent, staff, we have an inequity issue, and it needs to be fixed. I, too, am disheartened, dismayed, concerned, disappointed, whatever label you want to put on it, about how these funds were distributed out. And I look at this, the core academic renovations, and that's where the bulk of the money was supposed to be, with 9 schools. I agreed on Q and R because most of them were high schools or junior highs that were in need. Despite the fact that only one of my schools was listed, and most of them are, most other trustee areas have at least 2. I agreed on that. And I didn't tell my constituencies that only one of the schools in their area, in their immediate area that they would benefit from, would receive the funds. I stood shoulder to shoulder with everybody on this board, with the expectation that things were going to go as planned. And right now I see that we have a deviation from the plan to the tune of $15.4 million. And I'll explain it to you. Core academic renovations are supposed to be at $122 million, and that's supposed to be divided between those 9 schools. Well, if I just take those 9 schools and I look at the distribution of the funds, starting with Area 1, $24 million. Area 2, $29.3 million. Area 3, $8 million. Area 4, $13 million. Area 5, $15 million. Area 6, $25 million. Area 7, $7.4 million. I think that was the least out of all of them.
Can I give you a quick answer to that one?
No, I'm not done with
I don't lose track of your comments. Okay.
I'm not done with my.
I know.
Yeah.
So okay. Okay.
So you're telling me that most of the assigned projects were through deferred maintenance, and that there was this priority list, so to say. When I look at the 9 schools and then I look at, okay, these other schools that were in there because of deferred maintenance, then I see the notation of enhancement projects. Very fancy title, enhancement projects. At Washington and William Land and Theodore Judah, and class size reduction were not included in the projects originally. So Washington and William Land combined is $8.4 million. Wasn't planned, and it wasn't deferred maintenance.
Correct.
And Theodore Judah comes to the tune of $7 million. Wasn't deferred maintenance, because that, they wanted a stick building, for what I hear you. That's where I get the $15.4 million in equity. The deviation. $15.4 million that those other 9 schools that were originally on plan could have benefited from. How much money did we save when we closed schools? Less than $2 million.
The estimated amount was about between $300,000 and $400,000 per school.
Total.
Per school, so that will be about $2.1 million.
$2.1 million. $2.1 million. We closed 7 schools.
Per year, because the fees cost.
We closed 7 schools in disadvantaged areas. 7 schools in disadvantaged areas, and we're busing students. So we're having extra expenditure on top of that. And yet we can go and justify that. We want new construction at a school site because they don't want a used building. I'm upset. Serious? How are we justifying this, board? How are we allowing for bond money to be used that way? When we closed $2 million, we closed 7 schools to save $2 million, and we're spending $7 million to put a new constructed building on one school. The school that serves a community that's not that disadvantaged. I don't call that equity. Not at all. What was wrong with the two-story building that was already here with the district that they could have already had? There was nothing wrong with it. That's what makes me upset. Is we go out, we ask the taxpayers to trust us. And instead of saying we need to provide equity in our distribution of funds, we already have things that we can use, and we're going to use them because other schools can benefit from this money. But no, it's not good enough for some communities, but the other communities have to put up with it. And that's why they're not here, because they came to save their school, and nobody listened, and all they did was shut them down. A measly $2.1 million. And now we say we have vandalism. And now we say we have more expenses at these schools that we closed. We shouldn't even have had that in the first place, and we wouldn't have to pay for replacement of HVAC because we would have never closed that school and somebody would have already been there. It's inequitable. Board, I want to make a recommendation that we set a policy. If we go out for this $7 million, that $7 million is not going to be driven by any one board member coming and saying, my constituents want this. We're going to stick with the plan of ensuring that we have equitable distribution of bond money, because why should my constituents who pay their property taxes have their taxes not benefited in their area and go to some other area? My taxpayers in my area that I represent, that Pritchett represents and Ryan represents and Arroyo represents, deserves to have their school sites have every single one of those pennies come back to their area schools. That's what I want in terms of a policy. And yes, I am upset. And I think it's well deserved at this point.
Member Cochran.
Thank you. So I have a lot to say, but I would like to start off by thanking you for a clear presentation, and also by looking at the project list that you have and how many projects that you have completed and completed well. And so I'd like to thank you for that. So Ms. Helen, could I ask you to come step forward to me? I have a piece of paper that I'd like to have put on the Elmo. Thank you. I can't agree more with Member Ryan and Member Rodriguez about equity. There is something I need to clarify, though, regarding the Theodore Judah project. So because of class size reduction, and now because we're going to have, not class size reduction, but because of school closures and increase in the population of Theodore Judah, and now because of class size reduction, there was a need for more space at Theodore Judah. And the project initially involved a portable. And yes, the community had an opportunity to look at what they're referring to as a stick-built building by an architect who made a very good plan. But there was a rationale behind it, and the costs that are being quoted up here by the board members are not accurate. So, Kathy, Ms. Allen, you'll look at this and you'll raise an eyebrow because this was put together by people at Theodore Judah, and it's not 4 million. It's probably much higher. I think I've heard 6 million, but I do want to point out that my predecessor locked the developer fees into Theodore Judah. And so Theodore Judah looked at those developer fees and asked that it go towards doing an original stick-built building. So that's part of the cost, or part of the fees that went to the cost of building. Well, we also got a contribution from the developer of Theodore Judah, And we also are using almost 50,000 in Project Green funds. On top of that, the parent group of Theodore Judah has promised $55,000, and they'll probably raise $100,000. So the overall extra cost of the building is not what's being quoted up here, because the original cost was $3,325,000. So yes, there is a use, an additional use, and we could argue whether it's appropriate or not, but it's not what's being quoted up here by the board. So that being said, I agree with Member Rodriguez and Member Ryan, and I'm looking as a novice at the way that these bonds are written, and not really understanding if a bond is for an entire district, then why did we put specifically for a central kitchen? And then why in Q did we list a bunch of schools and then have a little codicil that says "and as needed"? It invites problems when you have specificity in a bond and then like a little escape hatch where a member can listen to a constituency and then ask for something to be built or something to be done or fixed. And unfortunately, we've been divided into areas, and we have very skilled, not myself, but very, very skilled board members that work with city government, county government, and push their individual projects through. I was in complete support of the stick-built building at Theodore Judah, and every other board member here voted for it except for Member Rodriguez. And she held her vote, and I respect that. But it was presented in a way as it truly was, which is a benefit to the district and the direction that we probably should go with the rest of our schools. Now, that being said, if we're doing this mysterious bond writing where we're adding specific projects and we're having little trapdoors that people can go through, why aren't we writing bonds that specifically benefit Area 3 or Area 7? The argument is, you'll never pass that bond because people, want to make sure they get their share. Well, it hasn't been tried. I don't know if we could do it, but we do have a side of this district that has not as good a quality as education and buildings that need help. Yeah, I could look down. I'm a lifelong Sacramentan, so I can tell you, what side of Broadway are you on? What's your school like? Do you have the best teachers there? There are a lot of reasons for it, but we are a board, and we can be creative, and we can try and solve it. So I wanted to present this information regarding Theodore Judah because I think accuracy is important, but I do support the sentiments of my colleagues.
Thank you. Okay. First off, I just want to start by saying that I'm happy that we did a good job on fixing things that needed to be fixed. And you brought up the fence issue, Ms. Allen. And sure enough, I'd give up a fence any day if there was a leaky roof or a playground that was dangerous or a child was tripping. I get it. I'm willing to spread the wealth and make sure. But when I go through this list, and I'm going to pick on some of my own schools. I'm not going to name them out specifically, but when I see things like Marquee.
Those are quick strikes, and they got to choose that.
So you asked the school, what do they want, and they got to choose Marquee.
We gave them a list of eligible bond expenditures, roughly worth $25,000 for all schools, because we wanted to do those quick strike projects to show the voters that we were acting promptly and something that they could see. Excuse me. So we picked eligible bond projects, gave each site roughly $25,000, and I think 19 of them picked Marquise. Some picked painting, some picked fencing, some picked security cameras, some picked paving projects up front, landscape and irrigation projects. It just depended on what the site wanted.
This was at the beginning of last year's school year or over the summer?
13.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I think I remember something about doors being painted on the outside but not the inside. And yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get away from the fact that I think that, a lot of our schools are aging, but some of the things I might say, first off, I wanted to thank you both for meeting with board members and trying to explain, because as you know, I'm very upset. I expressed that, and I appreciated you coming out and explaining things to me, and thank you for bringing up Measure I. And I'd like to ask formally that you send out a board communication with some details about Measure I that shows what the percentages were and how they were split apart. I know that we keep on mentioning that. I had time to let this sink in a little bit. So I know we keep on mentioning Rosemont and Carver. Okay, those are my high schools, right? And I'm proud of those high schools. They're fantastic. But I have really aging elementary schools in my area. And then I see Marquis. It's disturbing to me. And disturbing to think that, when I looked down that list, I was one of the lowest that received it. So, and I know I've already explained that to you. So, one of the questions that I wanted to ask that I think I asked you before with the closed schools. Member Rodriguez, thank you for bringing up the closed school issue, because we did say we would be saving this money, and where did it go? How come it didn't get put back into facilities? But with that being said, I know that when we passed this bond, we said money was going to be allocated. There were some projects that were going to be allocated for these closed schools. So can you explain to us where that money went when these schools were closed?
So the 5-year plan, and again, I wasn't here when the language is written, so if I get this wrong, I apologize, because I'm assuming what you're asking me. So the 5-year plan, and actually Member Rodriguez pointed this out, why is CP Huntington scheduled to receive projects in this plan, right, in a future plan? Because again, this entire list came from the deferred maintenance plan and then some of the core academic stuff that we did. But so in Barry's deferred maintenance plan in 2021, when the plan was written, CP Huntington roof and a restroom upgrade was scheduled. Now, having said that, that's still our asset. We still have to maintain it. So although we may not do the restroom upgrades because maybe nobody is using them by then, if I need to fix the roof, we need to fix the roof. So yeah, we are spending money at closed schools. We spent some money at CB Wire. We're getting emergency repair program money for some of our closed sites. Fruit Ridge is going to be the beneficiary of about $5 million worth of ERP funding over the summer. I don't want to turn that money down. That's free money from the state. So we're not ignoring our closed sites, with the exception of the 3 that are really problematic, which would be 16th and N, Old Marshall, and 24th and Florin. Mm-hmm. So, we take care of those from a maintenance perspective, but at this point in time, it may not be wise to invest in them in a capital perspective. So, as things, as lights break or roofs leak or windows get broken, then we go out there and we fix those things, but we're not into whole-scale roofing replacements right now until we go through the real estate process and figure out what the end result is of those schools, and do we need to then invest some of our own money in there? I mean,
is it safe to say that there were projects that were scheduled out for these closed sites that were canceled, and then that money was reallocated
for those 3 sites?
Yeah.
No,
for a closed site.
No.
There was no money that was reallocated. Okay.
Mind if I ask Barry real quick, I don't think we've.
They were on the
Can you come up here?
Sorry, Barry. We haven't deleted any projects. Let me put it that way. So, we would take a look at that restroom upgrade, when the money does become available for that, and decide, do we have people out there now? Do those restrooms get used? And if not, we'd put that back into the overall pot and go to the next restroom project or maybe the next HVAC project. But the roof, if the roof really does need to be replaced, because if we don't replace it, the asset's going to decline, we'll go ahead and spend the money on the roof. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
If there was money allocated for a closed site, it would go back into the pot to go to another site that it can be used at. But like there's a roof or something like that that's still protecting our asset, it would be done still. But restrooms, things like that would have been done.
I mean, a whole-scale HVAC replacement at CP Huntington is probably not in the future, right? Until we know if we're going to have people in there.
Okay. Thank you. This is tough to swallow, and I know I explained that to you when we met in our meeting. To have to go back to my constituents and explain to them, I know that you're paying your taxes on time just like everyone else, but I have to explain to you this is why. So ongoing communication of what's going on is going to be key with this. And I have another request, and that's for any board members that are asking for special projects, that they come to you and they have a conversation with you about what other school in their area that they can take the money from and then put it towards that special project, not from another area. And then they can go back to that school and explain to them why that project's not being done. So I'm making that request on record. Yeah, actually, I think that the policy committee should be looking into this, most definitely. Thank you. That's all I have. Obviously, nothing personal, just very, very dismayed over this whole thing. Looks like Member Arroyo has something he wants to add.
Thank you, President Pritchett. And what I wanted to state is more of a comment. And this is a very difficult topic. And what it does is that it sparks the idea of tribalism, right? Is it trustee areas versus trustee areas? But what I would like to do is just broaden the perspective. I don't see it as bad. I don't see it as negative. Removing the judgment side about trustee areas, I think that it serves its purpose. The fact that we have 7 board members that are truly from different neighborhoods, whereas before I came onto the board, 5 or 6 of them came from a single neighborhood, right? And so for me, it's a positive that we have this diversity from different communities that truly advocate for those communities where they live. How we split up the resources, we can get engaged in that dialogue and that conversation. How to refine the process? Do we have a perfect process? Probably not. But I think that what I don't want is for this discussion to devolve and to say, well, this is just a petty fight between trustee areas. And I would like to change it around and say, this is an opportunity for different areas to have an advocate fight for them to ensure that community gets a fair share of the resources, because we are communally, putting up this money. Now, on the other hand, we need to balance it on the district-wide perspective as well, that there are other criteria besides just my turf against your turf. There are lists of criteria that may deem a school in Member Hansen's area that does put it at the top of the priority list. So I think the big takeaway of this discussion as we move forward is, to me, it advances the dialogue forward into changing the culture of how we think about how we use resources in the district. And I think that there is room to be said about how we move forward with the allocation of resources, setting up a policy, clarity, transparency. But I really don't want us to be locked either on the extreme that we need to be thinking always of trustee areas only, because there may be unforeseen needs that will call for an area to require more resources than others. Whatever that may be, I cannot foretell the future. But I do think that it's a broader conversation, and that each board member here does bring to the table a needed voice for each community, and that needs to be desired, and that should be welcomed. How we engage with the superintendent, how we engage with staff to ensure that as we move forward, there's a balance between communities' needs being met, but also that we have a responsibility to the entire district. So it's a difficult conversation, and I really want to appreciate you taking the time and the tough position to present and receive the questions, the comments, and then work with us to ensure that we set up a process by which these conversations become less difficult as we move forward. Thank you.
One of the interesting things about this is you've actually seen this data all along. This is just the first time we've shown it graphically by totals. So it was it was kind of time, we were plugging along, and I think, if I can make maybe a final comment, this is really something to be proud of. We've accomplished an awful lot of work. in just a few short years. I mean, there's over 200 projects that we've either completed or are in progress, all the way from the super tiny to our first core academic renovation at McClatchy, followed by KIT, followed by West. And the other 6 are to be right after that. So.
And just a closing comment, and kudos to the superintendent and staff for taking the bold step to actually presenting this. Because, it's tough.
It was without my nightly glass of wine, so I got to tell you, it was really tough.
We have another board comment.
I know, but it does speak to the maturity of the board that we can have this conversation and then still move forward in a better way. Thank you.
We have Member Cochran that would like to say something.
Yeah, this is just very brief. I'd like to say thank you for those comments, Member Arroyo. And just a question. Some of these bond monies are not specifically allocated. For example, the Bond R, I think, focused on nutrition and some other details. And there actually has been no even land acquisition for Central Kitchen, and that's $30 million. And, I am new to the board, but for projects that are not undertaken but are kind of vaguely earmarked on a bond, maybe this is money that could be allocated to another district in another way. I know there are probably members here that are like, no, I want the Central Kitchen, and I'm not saying that we should dismantle that, but maybe there's other ways, maybe there's more than the Central Kitchen where we could take some money and put it to areas that are more needy.
There's a couple different ways to look at that. The Central Kitchen original estimate when we were doing the master plan was about $38 million. When I started looking at the numbers first time around, I'm like, okay, I need more money into the fields, right? So I actually decreased it down to $30 million, thinking I can certainly build this for $30 million. Then when the property that we had our eye on became not available, at least as of today, I bumped it back up because I don't know if we're going to have to buy property. We're going through that process right now with the ad hoc committee. Member Hansen has the Central Kitchen Task Force that I don't know if they can help us find property, but we're certainly open to that possibility. So one way to look at it is stay the course, keep the money there for the Central Kitchen. We can't really issue it right now anyway, and let a year play out and see what happens. If we end up with a piece of property, we'll sell our money and we'll build the Central Kitchen. It was in the bond as a project that could be funded out of R. It doesn't say in the bond language, thou shalt build a kitchen, but the next time we go out for a bond, we would just have to answer to that. Why did you not build a Central Kitchen? Well, because we reevaluated our needs and came up with these 6 projects or something. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is just to make that decision now and identify projects that could be paid for out of R. Have a discussion about how we prioritize those projects, because again, they're not identified, right? Although I know everybody's got it spent, including me, and push the kitchen off. So as Kathy said, one of the options moving forward is push projects off. And I'm not advocating for either one. I'm just saying it is a possibility. The Central Kitchen, if it doesn't look like it's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years, we could certainly push it off and issue that $70 million that's left at 2021, and it's gonna come and go a little bit because of AV, assessed value, and possibly look at that down the road. But again, that's a bigger discussion at the board level, maybe after we kind of burrow down a little bit more.
And it also depends on what those projects are, because there's only a limited amount of Measure R authorization. That's what the kitchen can be used for. The athletic fields, that's got to come out of R. But if it's projects over on the Q side, maybe that's where some of that money can come from. So some of it does depend. It's not just, let's spend it here. It depends on what those particular projects are, and then we can evaluate what makes sense from your legal perspective.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Cochran, for bringing the Central Kitchen up. So I think I just finished talking about equity and making sure that we have equitable distribution of funds. And I know this is unusual for me to say, but because I'm so against that Central Kitchen. But I think that we could think innovatively about how this because I don't certainly want to lie to the voters about this is why we wanted you to vote on this particular bond. But we could certainly be creative with what we have now, facilities-wise, start taking a nicer look at the options and save some of that. It's our money, right? Save the our money because I would really like to see Hiram Johnson have their track. It's very needed over there. I drive by almost 2-3 times a week, and I see that, and it hurts my heart because they deserve it.
Yeah.
And I know what it feels like to run on a track like that. I know what it feels like to run on a field like that.
Yeah, we have 8 Gopher fields that are going to need to be fixed too.
Yeah, so I would be willing to have that conversation now, whereas in the past I wasn't. So I don't know if people want to take advantage of that, board members. But I mean, if that's going to be an equitable swap that we could do, as opposed to buying a piece of land and using the facilities that we have.
And we do look at that. I mean, we've evaluated our existing inventory, and I mean, there are options. They're not as good as the one I've laid out earlier, but if push comes to shove and that option is totally off the table, then we could look at, I mean, we could throw it up in the parking lot out here. So I mean, it's not real centrally located, but
yeah, I think it's the most prudent thing for us to do. I just got on somebody else's case about, building new buildings instead of using what we have. I don't want to be a hypocrite about that, and I don't want the voters to be disappointed.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Vice President Ryan.
So since the question of the central kitchen came up, I felt compelled to just offer a few comments. Though I was not here for much of the politics and process over the central kitchen to date, I am certainly hearing from people on the ground, from constituents, from voters who voted for the measure because of the promise of a central kitchen and what that would mean for low-income students in the district. I will tell you, many of the same people we applauded earlier tonight who are partners on the Floyd Farm project are the same individuals who I'm working hand in hand with to craft a school wellness policy, to look at how we move forward the central kitchen vision. I think absolutely the conversation around how we use space, where we buy, all of these things need to happen, and they need to happen post haste. But just because we have $40 million on the table and have not moved on the central kitchen to date does not mean that I in any way support abandoning that dream. Frankly, I think it would be unconscionable given the involvement of so many stakeholders in trying to see that into fruition.
Thank you. That's a very healthy conversation. I think the superintendent has something to say.
I do. Before you guys leave, I just want to thank Kathy and Kathy for putting together such a very comprehensive presentation and a very honest, presentation in terms of projects that have happened. While I think there's still work ahead of us, we hear very clearly from the board concerns around the equity. And I don't know how to go about resolving that, but that's something we can have discussions around. I do want to make sure that we leave on this note, and that is that we should be very proud, this board should be very proud of the work that's gone on, because we made requests of our voters to support this bond and we made a case that we have $1 billion in $2 billion in need, and yet what we've been able to do with this money, it's nowhere near $2 billion, but we've been able to make a lot of headway. And so we want to continue to make sure that we address those issues, prioritizing them to say these are the ones that are health, safety, and whatnot related. Those have to remain in the forefront. But as we go along, I think you're right, Board Member Rodriguez, we can be very creative, be more innovative about how we can go about stretching our dollars to impact more schools and more projects down the way. So thank you again for a very comprehensive report.
Yes, and thank you again once more about meeting with board members and keeping us updated and really explaining things. I know we had a lot of questions, so we really do appreciate it.
Anytime.
Okay, moving on. Item 9.4, update of 2016 board committees and committee assignments. I have made a few changes. Hold on just a sec. Let me pull them out. All right. I'm going to go through each committee, whether they had changes or not, and one by one, and list the names, the chair, and the members of the committee. So we'll start with facilities, and that one will stay the same with member Vice President Hansen, myself, and member Arroyo. The budget committee, that will have member Rodriguez, Vice President Hansen, and myself. The policy committee, we have Vice President Ryan as the chair, and member Wu and member Arroyo. The governance committee, I have member Rodriguez as chair, myself, and member Arroyo. Superintendent evaluation committee, myself as the chair, member Rodriguez, and member Ryan. The remaining are board representatives on our local committees. We'll start with SAC Council PTA. We have Vice President Ryan, DLAC, member Cochran, Student Advisory Committee, member Ryan, the Parent Teacher Home Visit Project, Sacramento, Vice President Ryan, the Parent Teacher Home Visit Project National, myself, CSBA, which I just learned is a 2-year term, will be Vice President Hansen and member Cochran, and Council of Great City Schools, member Wu. Sorry. I will send this out to each of you. That way you have the list. You don't have to write it down. I was going way too fast. I will email it to you tomorrow. That will be it for that. Nope, it's appointed. Okay, so thank you all. I'm looking forward to getting committee reports. Item 10.0, business and financial information reports. 10.1, business and financial information. Purchase order board report of the period November 15th, 2015 through December 14th, 2015. Report on contracts with expenditure limitations specified in section PCC 2111 for November 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 15. 10.2, Head Start and Early Head Start report. 11.0, future board meetings. February 4th, 2016 at 4:30 closed session, 6:30 open. February 18th, 4:30 closed session, 6:30 open session right here where we are now. And 12.0, student member Barry. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's hope not. And abstentions? Fantastic. We are adjourned.